I'm listening to the Kongversation where they reviewed Banjo-Kazooie erotica. I've always had a soft spot for prego porn.
Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Jeff Onan. I forgot which one I was, Hyle.
Yeah, sorry, I
forgot which one I was.
I need to order the Kongversation Player's Guide so you can keep track of everything. Actually, what we really need to do is we really need to have Amir have a map to who the Kongversation co-host is, because then you'd be able to keep track of what's what.
Yeah, if there was a real Sea of Thieves guide website out there.
We love Amir. It's just the joke is that we always like to rub Amir's site in Jeff's face because Jeff has Golden Sands blog post. And for some reason, we like to imagine there's this grand rivalry between the two. When, no, they're friends. They're friends. But
yeah.
Back in the day, when DK Vine was but a budding, bud on the tree of the internet, and we were shitty teenagers, it was like we were at war with all the other sites, right? So you had RareNet, who were the old men on the block at the time. And then you had the upstarts, Rare Extreme, because, it was all about extreme back in those days. And then DK Vine was kind of in the middle, and we were just like, oh, we hate you. We hate you. And now, all the Rare fan sites are friends, and we all love each other. But I don't know. It's just fun to imagine that Jeff and Amir are trying to destroy one another. I don't know, because the world isn't antagonistic enough, and I just need to inject even more drama into it. Hi, Jeff.
It's a weird imagined scenario between two people who are just friendly people.
Just friends, and yeah, we love Amir.
Just friends.
And we love Jeff. So I don't know what my problem is, but I am also hyped up right now because I'm drinking this Coke Energy. And I also just had 2 caffeine pills. And I don't know why. I don't know why I did this. I was like, this might make
it was Jonah Hill and Martin Scorsese tried to sell me that Coke Energy during the Superbowl.
So I don't have cable. I don't watch broadcast TV. I'm only on streaming devices at this point. So I don't see any of the commercials for anything, really. And I'm glad, because I utterly have grown to despise Super Bowl commercials. People are like, oh, I just watch the Super Bowl for the commercials. And I was that way when I was a kid. And I was, impressionable. And I just was like, yeah, the commercials, they're so entertaining. And then I just realized how crass it is. How oh, yes, I can't wait to be advertised to. Ooh. And I can't wait to see what random grouping of celebrities these companies get. What the fuck was it? The Planners commercial that was Wesley Snipes and I don't even know who else, but
and the Kool-Aid Man.
But it was we're gonna rip off Baby Groot or whatever and have Baby Nut.
Man,
so every time I say Baby Nut,
this biting satire here. Hyle's the first guy to criticize Baby Nut.
Okay, I'm not going on a Baby Nut tangent, but it's just I hate that it's just we're just gonna get any celebrity we can get. Can we get Chris Evans? Let's get Chris Evans in here, and we'll get we'll get Coolio. Coolio. We'll get Coolio. That'll be good. And maybe we'll get Ed Asner. There we go. We got these 3 celebrities, and they're gonna shill Summer's Eve brand feminine hygiene products. And
let me say my piece on the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't watch the Super Bowl for the commercials. I don't even watch the Super Bowl for the football. I'll watch the Super Bowl because it's just something to do while you hang out with people and eat junk food. And it's just, I don't know, it's just something to do. Maybe I'm just conditioned culturally and I'm brainwashed. But during that, I will watch the commercials. And I will say this. Although some of them have fallen into the obvious cliches, we're just going to get a celebrity and it's going to be, you've seen the same thing 100 times, or other types of cliches that they fall into, it's still the best collection of commercials you can see on TV. And here's why. For the first, in the first place, almost all of them are brand new commercials that you've never seen before. And this is the only time you can turn into broadcast television and not get commercials that you've seen 1,000 times.
Uh-huh.
So immediately, that is probably 80% of the appeal for most people. Is just that it's commercial after commercial that you've never seen before. And people might not think of it that way, but that's why they like it. The second reason is that it's the highest production value of commercials, and most of them are just like a mini movie or a miniature story. And so if you watch broadcast television in the middle of the year, not during a special event like a Super Bowl, you're going to get commercials you've seen 100 times, and most of them are going to suck.
Yeah.
If you watch during the Super Bowl, they're going to be on average, above average quality, and all brand new that you've never seen before. You get to see Post Malone in a commercial advertising Bud Light Seltzer. And I like this commercial, and I'll tell you why. Because they go inside his brain to see what he's thinking, and there's a little, NASA command center inside his brain.
Uh-huh.
And all of the little people in Post Malone's brain wearing their ties and button-down shirts also have the same face tattoos on their face that Post Malone has.
Yeah.
And that is a funny little detail. Good job, Bud Light.
I think my thing is, I don't like when... my biggest gripe is just bringing in random celebrities to show something like, hey, middle America will recognize this, being the popcorn chomping assholes that they are. They're stupid. We're going to get them to buy our product because they recognize this celebrity. And I just... I hate two things about that. I hate that the disdain that... these big ad executives, like these Don Draper types, have for, I guess, average Americans. And two, I hate that it works and that they're right. And so it's just, I just want to get off the planet. I'm done. Whatever.
I'll say the one type of Super Bowl commercial that I can't stand is the fake sequel.
Yes.
This is where they bring in a celebrity from a classic movie.
Yeah.
And they make a miniature sequel to that film with the aged celebrity, but it's all just an advertisement for fucking Clorox wipes.
Yeah, right. What if Matthew Broderick has another day off? Fuck you. Fuck you.
They did it with Groundhog Day.
Yeah,
and
Groundhog Day is a classic movie, and you shouldn't... I don't even care if it's just, whatever. It's just a commercial. Oh, isn't it cute? Beep, 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 beep. No, it's not. It pisses me off. It would be like if we got a sequel to Donkey Kong Country 2 that was just, designed to sell red vines. It's just... It would be like you're taking this thing that I love and you're cheaping it. You're making it cheap. You are salting it. And yeah, it's all just... mass commercialism. It's all whatever. You could argue that the movies are just that too, but it's just, I don't know. I just don't like it. And
that being said, the halftime show gave me a boner. So #BabyNut. Let's go.
Yeah. Back after Nipplegate, when they were just getting classic rock stars to do the halftime show for 5 years because they didn't want to show any nipples.
They were like, who doesn't have nipples? Paul McCartney doesn't have nipples.
That's true.
Let's get him.
Smooth. He was grown in a vat. That the second Paul, after the first one died.
True.
That's why he had a longer head, because it pressed up against the vat and it elongated. It's true. Just look it up. Listen to the clues. That's what John's singing about.
That's the walrus. Yeah, I'm the walrus. Paul has a longer head. Yeah, it finally makes sense.
They had to use walrus DNA because they didn't have enough Paul McCartney DNA. So they had to get it from somewhere.
The word walrus is actually German for imposter.
Jeff,
it all makes sense, people.
I was thinking about this. We really need to just start a spin-off to the conversation where we talk about the Beatles, because I feel like we could have some fun with that.
I don't know what we'd call it.
Hyle and Jeff talk about the Beatles.
The Beatles. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah. No,
we should talk about the conversation topic,
we
though,
should.
Probably.
I was going to segue and say that the one commercial I did like that used a celebrity in recent years was Sea of Thieves, because it made sense. It wasn't just, let's get let's get Robert Downey Jr. in here to sell our pirate game. No, they got somebody who actually had a reason to be there. Samwise Gamgee, what's his name?
Sean Astin.
Sean Astin, the kid from the Goonies. He's not a kid anymore, but he was a kid then. And it made sense, you know, and so I was like, I like that. I like that they didn't just pander to me with, I don't know, O.J. Simpson.
He's just like, buy this game, Mr. Frodo. And I'm like, I will.
Yeah.
I will, Sam. I'm going to buy it.
He's like,
Then they put it on Game Pass, and I was like, why did I pay for that?
Yeah, he's like, I brought this salt. I was hoping to season my game disc with it. And then Frodo's like, where are we going to season a game disc with salt? Sam.
I've never left the Shire. Don't worry, we're going. There's boats and seas.
Actually, we should just record new audio recordings of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but just do it off the top of our heads.
The extended director's cut, 12 hours or so.
I would pay to listen to that. I would pay myself to listen to that.
So the first Kongversation listener to dub over all 12 hours of the Lord of the Rings director's cut trilogy with Kongversation in-jokes and record it, they will get nothing except for my admiration and respect.
Yeah, I'm easing up on the contest, Jeff, because we have too many active contests, and the only person who actually answered the call, Ghostbusters reference? I don't know, was just Andre, who is in the live stream chat right now. Hi, Andre. Because he recorded a roughly 6-hour audio commentary on our audio commentaries on Platonic's ukulele commentaries. And because of that, in a couple weeks, we have to do a Mr. Patch episode. On
that topic, Platonic, please do more commentaries, this time about Ukulele and the Impossible Lair, which is their other game.
Yes, and
I'll watch them on YouTube.
Barring any huge news, like a new Donkey Kong game getting announced or something, which I don't think is going to happen in the next week, the next episode of the Kongversation will be us discussing more of Impossible Lair. So this is our Sea of Thieves catch-up. We've got an Impossible Lair catch-up next episode. But, you know, we have all these contests.
I feel like we're getting pretty well caught up on Sea of Thieves. We've done a good job so far.
Well,
hashtag baby nut.
Hashtag baby nut. But, speaking on the contest, Jeff, if you want to enter any of them, don't forget there's still a missing episode of the Kongversation Season 6. Discover the clues in Season 6 about walruses, maybe, about Paul McCartney groaning that's, and find the episode and add us on Twitter with it, and you'll get an autographed copy of the Sea of Thieves #1 comic book, signed by the author, Jeremy Whiteley, and you will also have my undying admiration for actually figuring it out. Also, Season 7, if you can find all of the Bond titles name-dropped in every episode, GoldenEye N64 does not count, although the GoldenEye movie would, but you find the one Bond title per episode in Season 7, list them in the correct order, add us on Twitter, and you get a Pierce Brosnan Funko Pop, and your choice of either Sea of Thieves or Ukulele and the Impossible Lair. So that is a worthwhile contest to enter, because you get stuff. You get a lot of stuff there. And I think that's a little bit easier than the Season 6 contest. But it's Season 8 now, and nobody's figured out the Season 6 contest. But I'm not gonna help anybody. I think it's funny the longer it goes. It just gets funnier and funnier and funnier.
But Hyle, how could that be a good gift? Why would anyone choose Sea of Thieves when I've been told that Sea of Thieves has no content?
No content. Well, Jeff, if Sea of Thieves had no content, I wouldn't need to go to Golden Sands blog post in order to keep up with all the Sea of Thieves content. And Golden Sands blog post,
you say?
Yes, Golden Sands blog post, I do say. What is Golden Sands blog post, even though I just said I use it all the time?
Well, Hyle, you poor idiot boy. Golden Sands blog post is my blog where I keep you up to date with all of the Sea of Thieves content that is coming out on a monthly basis, so that you never are lost as to what is currently going on in the game, what is time limited, and you need to get done before the month is over, and just generally cool shit. You can find it at medium.com/. golden-sands-blog post, or you could just find me on Twitter at Golden Sands Blog. The Twitter one is easier. You'll find a link back to the blog that way.
Or you know what?
And you'll find tweets.
I'm just going to set up a redirect to dkvine.com/Golden Sands blog post.
Wow, what a move. Thank you for that.
Just to help the Kongversation listeners out, if you just want to get to it quicker and you need that DK Vine branding on it, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. And you also check out deadhamsterman.com while you're at it.
Dead Hamster Man, yeah.
Which is everyone's favorite URL.
Yeah.
A real website.
It is. It is a real website. It directs back to DK Vine. GameBest.computer. Check that out.
Xboysdungeon.com.
It's X-Boy Dungeon for the game
crap.
X-Boys.
Shoot. I hand in my badge and my gun.
Yeah.
I'm off the force. You're taking me off the case. Sea of Thieves, Hyle.
Sea of Thieves, Jeff. Yeah, so Sea of Thieves, of course, we've been talking about on the Kongversation for quite a while now, and it's a game that didn't impress a lot of people, when it first came out, and now it's one of, I think, Xbox's core pillar brands, and for the reasons it didn't impress people, they have long been rectified, and that was the quote-unquote lack of content upon release. And, there's lots of debates about why that was, and I think part of it was they had to get the game out the door for Game Pass, and, it was a functional game, and it was a lot of fun, but it was a game that was kind of built on promise, and not everybody could see that promise of what was to come. So they just kind of wrote it off, but it's definitely a very, very robust game now because there are just endless things to do, and I say endless things because there's no end to them, and every month they add more and more features to the point where our biggest gripe about it is there's not enough time now to concentrate on other stuff. For example, our crew, which, is roughly you can only have 4 people per crew, but we usually play with groups of around 8 people that we rotate in and out. And the biggest gripe of our crew is, it'd be really nice if we could spend a day and replay the first Tall Tales or something, or maybe concentrate on older commendations that weren't time limited, or play the arena a little bit more. But we just are there's always new stuff. And some of it is time limited. Content. So you have to prioritize and we'll get to it later. But later never comes. And so it's just funny how the complete opposite problem is now there. It's Rare, can you slow down a little bit or something? I don't know. And yeah, it's ultimately on me because I don't have enough time to play the game, and I can't be mad at the studio for just making the game even more worthwhile. But still, it would be nice to have a breather every now and then so we could go back and savor a little bit rather than, I know you're not as concerned about this as I am, but every month there is a time limited commendation or two where you have to do so much of one thing before the end of the month. So that becomes my priority because I want to get that commendation checked off. I did that. And
yeah, I've gradually rewired my brain in the way that I actually think of Sea of Thieves, and really have come to see that the monthly content, the time limited content, is in my brain, it's an optional suggestion of what to do with your time. It's here's something new to do if you want. But I know so many other players that ignore it completely.
Yeah. And
they spend all of their time in Sea of Thieves doing their own things and using it as a sandbox.
Sure.
And I really have started to rework my brain, and I don't think of Sea of Thieves as a set of objectives that rotates monthly. I think of Sea of Thieves as that sandbox, as it always really has been, but I haven't been able to let my brain really think of it that way. And it really is that sandbox of do whatever you want with monthly suggested activities on top of that. And I recognize that for a lot of people in our friend group, that's impossible to think of it that way, because when there's a suggested activity that is going to disappear at the end of a time limit, then it's no longer a suggestion to you.
Yeah.
It's something that you feel compelled to complete, or else you will never feel complete. So I get that.
I mean, and the thing is, Sea of Thieves, it appeals to a broad base of people now, and so I think a lot of people with a more traditionalist rare mindset, like me, or people who just have minor forms of OCD, like me, get hung up on that. But there's no wrong way to play the game. And as much as that might upset us, because some people play the game just to grief others, but even I would argue that's not a wrong way to play the game. It just pisses me off. And I think you're
as long
a bit
as
of an
you're not
asshole.
cheating.
Yeah.
As long as you're not cheating, then if you just want to be an asshole, that's allowed.
And there is some cheating going on, or people do cheat, and it's quite obvious when they cheat. But you can just report them and just hope for the best. But that's ultimately just a widespread gaming problem, not unique to Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. The last time we did an episode on Sea of Thieves, we had kind of started. They had gone to a monthly content schedule.
Yes.
And we covered the first 3 months of that.
Yeah, so I wanted to address how the conversation will be covering Sea of Thieves going forward, because for the first year kind of the game's existence, they had these big updates, and they were kind of like time limited updates in some ways, because we had like the Hungering Deep, which was the first one, but that was just kind of this ephemeral flash that happened, and then it was gone. And we'll never have the Hungering Deep back in the game again. Of course, it added Megalodons, it added the character of Merrick, the drum, the speaking trumpet or horn or whatever. I mean, it profoundly impacted the game and the lore of the game, but the event itself, you can't replay that. That was just a one time thing, it just for a week or 2 weeks, and then it was gone. And so we treated each big update as a new conversation. So, Hungering Deep first impressions, and then we had, was Cursed Sails first impressions, and then we kept doing that up till the anniversary update. And with the anniversary update, I feel like I don't feel like they have changed the way they approach the game. We have these smaller monthly updates that continue to drive the narrative much in the same way those big events used to, but in a smaller, subtler way, but also in a way that it doesn't it doesn't go away. It doesn't enter the game and then get taken away. It's still there. Time limited accommodations notwithstanding, you can still do everything in the game. It just might be less pronounced in the game. So they might dial back the number of times you'll encounter something that was big in that monthly update, but it's still there. It's still very much something you can experience. So going forward, I feel like we'll have catch-up episodes like this one. Because the last Sea of Thieves episode we actually did was talk like a Pirate Day 2019. And that was shortly after they added pets and the Pirate Emporium, and the game became DKU by our ruling through a couple different metrics, mostly that Greg Mayles is sailing as Captain Blackeye in the game. But we haven't done one since then, and it's been about 4 months worth of content. So, yeah, we're going to have catch-up episodes. It's not going to be like this first impressions and that first impressions. No, going forward, because they've changed the way they update the game, we're going to change the way we do our conversations. So I think every 4 months or so is a good way to do it. So we'll have about 3 Sea of Thieves catch-up episodes per season, minus any huge things that go down. And I think that would be the smartest way to go about it, and it'll keep us up to date on the game, but it won't wear out our audience about talking about the game, because the game it's funny, Jeff, that we have this game, this DKU game, this part of the rare shared universe that is this living, breathing narrative. And it's something that's not, new to video games, but it's new to us. It's new to our corner, our little fandom. And so you could very much just talk about Sea of Thieves day in and day out and kind of ignore everything else. And we can't do that at DK Vine because we have a wider kind of breadth of stuff we need to cover, from Donkey Kong to Platonic to nostalgia. So I think this is a good balance for us. Every 4 months or so, we'll have a Sea of Thieves conversation.
Yeah. So the last one we covered the first 3 months of monthly updates, and I feel like they were just starting to build themselves into the rhythm of those.
Yeah.
And so this set that we'll be covering today, the next 4 months, is really where I think they have nailed down what is a monthly update and what the rhythm and amount of content you're getting in a month is. And what that, kind of entails is because, in the last one, the third month out of those 3 months was when they finally introduced the Pirate Emporium.
Yeah.
But now, new content in the Pirate Emporium is a big part of each monthly update.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about some of that a little later. But each monthly update includes new cosmetics in the Pirate Emporium. That is their in-game real-life currency shop, things you can buy with money, with real dollars. And so that's kind of a newish addition to the game, but they're updating it every month with some stuff you can buy with real money. They've got a really good way of implementing that. That's not like pay to win. It's not randomized loot boxes, nothing like that. So that's very cool for the people who have the disposable income to deck themselves out with purely optional cosmetic stuff. But then they've also got the black market, which is cosmetics they're adding with the in-game currency and in-game objectives. So if you don't have real money to spend on other stuff, there is still new cosmetics coming every month that you can buy without real-life dollars.
Yeah, it's nice that not everything is behind a paywall, and
right.
Most of the stuff behind a paywall isn't time-limited, like the ship cosmetics. So it's not like, oh, I can't afford this really nice Killer Instinct set this month. Well, it'll still be there, so I don't have to...
Yeah, the best stuff is not time-limited, although there is still like a monthly like pet outfit or cosmetic item that is time-limited. But there's kind of this implied assumption that stuff might cycle back around.
Especially the seasonal stuff.
Right, if it's themed around Christmas,
right.
It'll come back next Christmas.
Right.
Or the holidays, I should say.
Well, yeah, because not everything in the game, it's not like it's U.S. Thanksgiving time. Here are your U.S. Thanksgiving themed items, because that would make sense in the world of the game, which predates the United States of America. So it would be stuff like the Festival of
Plenty,
yes. I was like, the Festival of Eating? What is it called? Festival of Plenty. And then, of course, instead of the Christmas and Hanukkah and all the winter holidays, it's the Festival of Giving. And
yeah, so these are in-universe holidays that are made up by the Pirate Emporium company to sell more Pirate Emporium stuff.
Made up. Well, we had the Festival of the Damned already established in the game as the stand-in for Halloween, kind of this harvest, spooky time, and they didn't really acknowledge it that much this past Halloween, but it's still kind of implied that is the Halloween stand-in. And then they just kept going when the Pirate Emporium entered. It's like Festival of Giving, Festival of Plenty, Festival of Chinese New Year. What was it called?
Oh, shoot. The Lunar Festival.
The Festival of Lunar. Right. So, and I was disappointed because we're not going to be talking about the recent update that just went live a couple days ago. We'll save that for the next catch up because I haven't played it yet. I'm going to play it the weekend after we record this. But, I was disappointed there's no Valentine's Day stand-in, like the Festival of Fucking or Festival of
Heavy Petting.
Of Heavy Petting, right. Which would work with the pets because then you could pet them, but really, really hard.
Yeah. So these monthly updates, you've got the Pirate Emporium stuff every month. You've got black market cosmetics and other cosmetics that are outside the black market. And I don't think we really need to get into the doldrums of what the differences are. But they're got quality of life updates. They're kind of fixing bugs every month or just enhancing things to make them simpler or easier to, like little quality of life changes every month. adding in new tools, new items, new things you can interact with, and new things that will enhance what I call the sandbox tools. So, like, it's not necessarily tied into a linear objective, but it is just something you can encounter that will enhance your journey in some way, or maybe give you some other thing you can make up your own activity. Or like, here's an example, the first one they added in banjos as a new instrument you can play, but we can talk about that.
The instrument, not the bearer. I know everybody listening got confused.
The instrument with the strings and the wood and the twang. So they added that, but then the other main big thing they add every month is limited time voyages that Duke, the bilge rat, who is kind of the emissary for monthly content.
Bilge rat is a group of pirates. They're not actually rat people.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the conversation audience, we need to clarify. When you say the bilge rats, everybody's thinking anthropomorphic rat people, like Splinter from the Ninja Turtles.
This is pre-transformation Splinter. But
in movie and comic canon, not cartoon canon, where he was actually a human sensei who transformed into a rat versus a rat who became humanoid.
Yeah. So Duke is basically he's the shepherd of monthly content, and so he'll give you voyages every month that are unique to that month, and they have you doing a unique new activity. And a lot of times, there's also on top of that a permanent new activity that's not time limited, and the time limited voyages will tie into that activity. So that activity might be something like do something a bunch of times, or collect a certain new piece of loot a bunch of times, or whatever. And that is a long-term, not a time-limited thing. You have forever to complete that. But then Duke's Voyage will give you a shortcut to doing that. It'll be like, well, this voyage will lead you right to that loot that you need to do that thing, but you'll have to fight some skeletons on the way or whatever. And so they kind of tie in nicely. You've got these long-term activities that are not time-limited, but then you've got this incentive to do it this month and not wait, because it'll be easier to get done now.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the structure that they've got, and they've got that going monthly. And yeah, so we can just kind of get into what they've done in the past few months.
Right.
With their monthly updates. Yeah,
I mentioned they had the Halloween stand-in Festival of the Damned, and they didn't have a Festival of the Damned like events this year. They didn't like bring back like the thing they did back in 2018, but they did have the Fort of the Damned at the same time, which was kind of a spiritual successor. If they they did a Kickstarter campaign to fund 1 month of events, and then it was like, well, this is the Fort of the Damned, the spiritual successor. Yeah. Anyway, so the Fort of the Damned, Jeff, what was the Fort of the Damned? Because it was really cool, because Sea of Thieves being a living, breathing, evolving game, sometimes things change forever, permanently in the game, on the map, or with certain NPCs, and they don't go back. Like, this is the new status quo. And Fort of the Damned was a big one.
Yeah, so Fort of the Damned, what was great about this is it was kind of a little payoff, a little climax to the month-to-month story.
Little climax, or as I call them, baby nuts.
Hey, I saw it coming and I was still happy. All right. They've got this monthly ongoing story. Every month that they bring in these monthly updates, they also will have the NPC's dialogue tweak a little. You'll have things around the world change. Maybe a new NPC shows up and everyone's like, ooh, what are they up to? Their dialogue is really ominous. It sounds like they might be a bad guy, or maybe it's a red herring. And then so every month you've got like this ongoing story that is unfolding.
But I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm sorry, but when you said red herring, I have to explain to the conversation audience, he doesn't mean fish people. He means false clues.
Yeah, right. And so the Fort of the Damned was kind of a payoff to a little bit of this build-up where this was the October update. Well, back in the August update, there was the Dark Relics, where skeletons had stolen some dark relics, some black magic artifacts from the Order of Souls, and they basically were tasking you with going and getting them back. But we obviously didn't get them all back because some of these artifacts are still out there, and the skeletons use them to perform rituals. And the Fort of the Damned was the first kind of payoff to that. We see that there was this fort, this skeleton stronghold on the map, one of 10 that there are in the game. But this particular one, which was called Old Boot Fort, the skeletons did a ritual there and turned that entire island into a gateway to the Sea of the Damned, which is where pirates go when they die and they get ferried back to the land of the living by the ferryman. But they basically did it as a way to bring back the soul of, what's his name? Captain Greymarrow, the Skeleton Lord. And so the skeletons basically created this portal to the land of the dead. And if you went there and you did an elaborate ritual, you could activate it, and it would trigger a gauntlet of ghost skeletons that you'd have to fight using different colored lanterns. It was a really fun kind of challenge where the skeletons are immune to attack until they get flashed with a lantern. They already have shadow skeletons in the game. That wasn't a new feature. But what made this a new feature was that they were using the lanterns of the dead, the different colored lanterns that were the focus of last year's Festival of the Damned event, where if you die by fire, for example, you can turn the color of your lantern red. And if you died by shark, you could turn your lantern blue. And if you died by lightning, you could turn your lantern white. So then you go to the the Fort of the Damned, you use all these lanterns to do a ritual, and then you've got to fight these skeletons that are color-coded, and you have to flash them with your lantern to make them vulnerable. And it's this tricky activity where you kind of like have one player say, well, I'm going to flash them with the lantern, you kind of attack them, or I'll have the white lantern and you get the red lantern because there's multiple colors at once. And it was great, but what makes it especially challenging, and Hyle, you can attest to this, is that it broadcasts your position to everyone on the map. Basically, it puts a giant red skull, or a giant skull with red eyes in the sky, and it communicates to everyone in the map that you are doing the Fort of the Damned. And because the Fort of the Damned kind of takes an elaborate ritual to get going, it is a tricky, time-consuming thing to start. But once you've started it, everyone sees you've done all the work to get it started. So they're all going to come and try and fight you over it, or team up. I've had some team up alliances, server alliances going, and that's a lot of fun.
That must have been fun. I never had that.
Yeah, we had some times where we'd get it going, and then we'd have a brigantine crew come in and just kind of sink us over and over while we try and get back and take it back from them, and then lose again.
For those of you who aren't aware, like who don't play Sea of Thieves as religiously as Jeff and I do, brigantines are essentially the Dodge Chargers of the ocean, in that you're like, who's this asshole tailgating me? Oh, it's a Dodge Charger. It's a brigantine. It's like not always, because sometimes we sail on a brigantine when we only have 3 people who can play that session. But generally, they are. I think, Jeff, you put it up in a very funny way. They don't have enough friends to have 4 people because they're assholes.
You never see a group of 4 assholes because you can't get that many people to like hanging out with each other.
But
so
3 assholes,
three assholes, it's the golden number.
Yeah. And we're generalizing, but generally brigs are people who love to flaunt their pirate legends, who have the full-on like ghost regalia, and just like they want you to know I'm a legend and you should be afraid. We're all pirate legends generally on our crew, save for like maybe Dustin. But
called out.
Well, no, but I mean, like Shane and I did become pirate legends at the end of 2019. So and then Gibbon became a pirate legend just a few weeks ago. So we're gonna get Dustin there in due time. But the thing is, like, we don't flaunt that we're legends. We don't even use the title. I'm still like Brave Vanguard. and I forget what you are, Jeff.
Probably a Brave Vanguard. I usually am.
Yeah, but because we don't care like about broadcasting that because we're there to do other things besides grief people and put like fear into them. These people think they're like Batman, where people are cowardly and superstitious. So I'm going to dress as a flying mammal. And anyway, brigantines. They usually sail on brigantines, and so when you see a brigantine, it's just like, uh-oh, watch out. They're up to no good.
Yeah, this is Fort of the Damned is a really good example of there's kind of this always a struggle or it's the two wolves inside you that one of them is trying to collect treasure and the other one is an asshole. It's the game has there's a PvE, player versus environment element where you and your friends just want to play the objectives of the game against AI kind of obstacles, and then there's the PvP where players want to sail around and encounter other crews and get into fights. And really what the game is PvPVE, which is that's a real gaming term. People describe it that way. PvPVE, basically you're doing your own objectives while fighting other people for them. And the Fort of the Damned is the perfect example of that, where they're purposely playing up. And they don't do this every month. Not every monthly objective works this way. But this month in particular, they were leaning into the fact that they were going to bring players together either in conflict or with the potential for cooperation. But it was very leaning on the conflict element where, yes, you're going to do this tricky objective of completing this kind of raid fort thing, but you're going to have to defend yourself from other crews because they know you're doing it and they want to get that treasure too. And yeah, so the game's I think that it's healthy for the game to focus on that once every several months. I don't want them to do that every month because I do like the times when we can just play and ignore all the other players.
Yeah, I mean, I like variety.
But, yeah.
I do like variety, but sometimes it can get a little demoralizing. And I think Cameron will attest to this since he is the one who gets the most quickly demoralized whenever things happen. And you think Cameron is this like he is the Mr. Spock of our crew of the DK Vine staff, where he's like just like cool and just like he doesn't let things get to them. No, play Sea of Thieves with him, and it's just like a flip has been switched, and we're all kind of like fearing not the other crew but Cameron because his reaction is.
But and that sometimes that adversity leads to the greatest like stories, like when you actually overcome some asshole crew that tries to take everything from you.
Oh yeah,
you end up making them eat your taint. It's a lot of fun. And it ends up making it all the more sweeter that you got away with the treasure because you had to fight for it.
Yeah, yeah, and you win some, you lose some, and it's not like any setback is too horrible. It can like put you off the game for a brief little spell, and then you just get the urge to play it again. It's just like any game, really. But
and it's all kind of a randomness of like who you run into, because you can run into players that are the most friendly and helpful people, or you can run into a crew that is just one crew of assholes that exist in the world, and they make it their goal to ruin your day. And it's like, well, you kind of just got bad luck that time. You ran into some assholes, but that's every video game, I think. I think it can hit harder in Sea of Thieves only because you're playing in this long form. You could put hours of work into something. And it's not easy to just like quit what you're doing and leave to join a different lobby sometimes. Although we do that, if it works for us.
Well, as of late, we've gotten a good routine of scoping out the server first and making sure. And sometimes you don't know, but sometimes especially since the Reaper's hideout has been a prominent part of the game.
Yes,
you can
which we will get into.
Yes, you can kind of check out the intentions of people on the server fairly quickly, and then if you feel like the server is okay, we just continue. But yeah, the Fort of the Damned, I loved, and I love that it's still in the game, and then it's just this permanent like scar on the game map. Like they've completely ruined this fort the skeleton fort that was kind of like the most innocuous sounding fort in the game. Old boot fort, you know, like it's like a fishing hole or something. It's just just completely like out of Mayberry, and they've made it this hellmouth that enters the afterlife. And then as you sail towards it, like the clouds on the horizon start getting green, and everything gets eerie, and
it's completely enveloped in fog.
Yeah,
which is also it's eerie. It gives an effect, but it also has a gameplay component because you can't see if you're in the fog. If you're parked at the fort doing the fort, you can't necessarily see people coming in unless you get up to a high height and look around. And vice versa, if you're approaching the fort, you can't see if someone's parked there because they're within this fog, and it kind of conceals sort of. It conceals your line of sight, and that's a cool gameplay element for a fort that is essentially designed for this PvP hotspot. This trigger of like, if people are here, it's going to cause other people to come here and create conflict, and so to give it that fog effect is a cool twist on it.
Yeah, and that conflict unfortunately happened to me more times than not. I mean, I had a lot of fun playing it, and I think we had like maybe one crew who had an uneasy alliance with us, but it ultimately didn't come to blows, and I think we split the treasure. I'll have to go back and look at the archives, but other times you would just get crews who were there to ruin it, and they could have been doing something else completely. They see that the fort is active, and then they come, and you could have been like playing for a couple of hours at that point, trying to activate the Fort of the Damned, because you have to get all the different flames, you have to get the ritual skull, and then they just come along and they steal everything right out from under you, and so it's just, I didn't have the best experiences with it, but it's kind of hilarious the experiences that did happen, especially one time we were playing, and Jeff, I don't even remember if you were playing with us on this session, but we had a stowaway on our ship from at the Fort of the Damned, and they stayed on our ship the entirety of the session after we left the Fort of the Damned, because they were hoping to steal an Athena chest, which are the chest of legends that you get from doing Athena voyages, and they were stowed away on our ship the entire time. And we only realized like towards the end that they were there, and they didn't get it. They wasted hours just hiding on our ship, and they didn't get a single piece of treasure from us. But yeah, just stuff like that. It just
I did have one good time where it was like almost server-wide alliance. So there's 6 ships on a server, and I think we had an alliance of about 4 ships. So it's like a galleon, a brigantine, a couple sloops, and so you add all that up, and you have what? That's like 11 players. Which is, it's always cool when you get that many people together being friendly, because you don't usually get that many players in close proximity to each other, like hanging out. And so we're all doing the fort together. We've got this awesome system of like, we had one sloop whose whole job was to run around doing the ritual skull voyages or whatever that Duke had that month to go get ritual skulls, because ritual skulls are like the fuel you need to kickstart the fort. And if you've collected all the lanterns, the flames, you only need to collect them once, because once the fort is finished, the lanterns stay, and then you can just plug in another ritual skull and do the fort again. And so what we did is we sat here and we did the fort over and over, with one crew's whole job going to get more ritual skulls to complete the ritual with, and the rest of the crews would just sit there and just do the fort, and we would kind of rotate off so that one crew could get like credit or commendations for doing it. And then like you complete the fort, and inside you get a Athena chest. And we were coordinating with each other so that one crew would pick up the Athena chest, and that would assign ownership to that crew, like in the logic of the game. And then they would give it to another player and have that player's crew sell it, because then they'd get a commendation that said there's a commendation for quote unquote stealing Athena chests. And
Which I still need to do.
And so I got all of those commendations done because this crew who had them done already were just like, well, we'll pick up the Athena chest so that the game thinks it's ours, and then we'll give it to you so the game thinks you stole it from us, and then you could just get them. And I did all 5 in one session because we did the fort 5 times. And, and you end up with hundreds, thousands of gold and all this good treasure and a bunch of commendations. And everyone's like working together on it, and it's a lot of fun. And then the point is, you only have 4 ships in your alliance. So there's 2 other ships out there doing whatever they want. But when they came in to try and tussle with us, now we are 4 ships strong. So if anybody did want to tussle with us and kind of break up the alliance, we would all just team up on them. We'd be like, well, you can't get even close because there's 4 ships of us against 1 of you. And so it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And it's too bad you didn't get to have that experience because they're pretty rare in the game when that kind of stuff happens. But they do create these kind of great memories. But speaking of the Fort of the Damned and the ritual that the skeletons did with the Dark Relics, the very next monthly update was also centered on that plot line of the skeletons in their Dark Relic rituals, and that was the Seabound Soul.
Yeah, and it's like there are numerous plot threads being woven at any time in Sea of Thieves, and sometimes they intersect, and sometimes you don't know where they're going. And with Seabound Soul, this was a new Tall Tale addition to the game. And so we had the initial set of 10 Tall Tales in the anniversary update.
9, but yeah.
9. 10 just seems like a much more rounded number. We had 9, and they were all kind of sequential. They all bled into each other. You could play some of them in different orders, but they all kind of fed back into the same conclusion point. And
for those who aren't quite familiar, a Tall Tale is like Sea of Thieves' version of like a story mission, like a story chapter.
Yeah, it's kind of like the main narrative adventure you can play in the game that isn't tied to monthly build rat quest or
instead of like a general do this activity and make stories with your friends. It's actually a story with NPCs and dialogue and boss fights and puzzles and traps and
that you can still play with your friends. That's the important part.
You can play with your friends, and you can still encounter other players.
Yeah,
but it's a story that the authors of the game have written for you to experience.
It's not like the arena where it's separate from the main adventure mode. It's still very much on the server. It's just kind of
right. So that first set of tales kind of told a self-contained story, a beginning, middle, end, kind of an 18 to 20 hour campaign, and that story's finished. And this Tall Tale was kind of the very first of a new episodic story that they're going to tell over months. That this is the first entry into this new story. Instead of getting the whole story dropped at once, like a binge, season on Netflix or whatever, instead it's like one episode at a time.
Which I very much prefer. Like I don't like the Netflix model of they've all dropped because it makes it impossible to talk about anything with any of your friends because everybody's at a different point. And the joy of sequential television of one episode at a time is that, hey, did you see the new episode of blah, blah, blah? Oh, yeah, what do you think's going to happen next? Blah, blah, blah. And everybody's at the same point, and you lose that with binge watching. So this is kind of cool because it allows us all to kind of speculate. And we didn't get this with the first set of Tall Tales because everybody might have been at a different point. It's like, oh, no spoilers, please. I'm not that far. So the first set of Tall Tales dealt with the Shroud Breaker and the Shores of Gold, and ultimately finally got around to introducing the Gold Hoarder, who one of the skeleton lords who was heavily featured in early marketing for the game and tied into the Athena's Fortune novel, Chris Alcock's novel, and which we're still going to discuss on the Kongversation, Chris, if you're listening. But the new Tall Tale, and I don't know, should we get into? I mean, we're going to have to kind of touch upon what it deals with here, Jeff. So should we say
Yeah.
spoilers from this point out?
I think that the ending of this tall tale is probably not quite relevant to our discussion, right?
Well, I don't know, because...
Well, it was 3 months ago, too. So
yeah, it was 3 months ago, and also I feel like Festival of Giving and Legends of the Sea, they're definitely tying into where it ended, right? So, like, or at least that's what we're supposed to assume.
Well, let's say this. If you have not played the Seabound Soul Tall Tale, and you still haven't had it spoiled for you, and you plan to play it at some point, then you should probably tune out for the rest of the episode. But then tune back in and re-listen to this later after you've played it.
Absolutely,
now,
yeah.
If you have played the Tall Tale, or if you don't plan to, go ahead and keep listening, because we'll spoil it for you and you'll enjoy our hilarious anecdotes.
Yeah, I don't like telling people, hey, stop listening, even if you have no intention of, playing it. Yeah, whatever. Maybe you just want to hear us talk about it, and you don't.
So there's
really care.
there's really two cool things about this Tall Tale lore wise. So I think the beginning is its own awesome, amazing like lore point, but then the ending is a completely different awesome, addition to the lore.
So Sea of Thieves is not necessarily through our own DKU rules, like what makes a game DKU, even though Sea of Thieves is DKU by our rules. But Sea of Thieves is very much kind of established itself as this omni-rare prequel to almost every Rare franchise under the sun, because we've had references a lot through the Pirate Emporium, through the ship cosmetics but the legacy Rare ship cosmetics you can buy, but through other things too. Sea of Thieves has referenced Banjo-Kazooie, obviously, numerous times. Viva Pinata, Perfect Dark, Killer Instinct, and in some way has kind of established
Battletoads.
Battletoads. Although Battletoads has been lesser a little bit, but
it'll come. It'll get its chance.
Yeah. Cameo, though, where Cameo is referenced as a fairy tale within the world of Sea of Thieves. Perfect Dark, we have the Carrington Institute established. What else? Viva Pinata, they just added the ship cosmetics for the Viva Pinata ship, and we already had the hieroglyphs, the cave paintings of the pinatas, but this establishes that Pinata Island is a legend island. Yeah,
the mythical paradise garden where these candy-filled creatures live. So the whole they basically come out right and say Pinata Island is an island near the Sea of Thieves that the pirates, believe is this mythical fabled land.
Banjo-Kazooie, of course, so many things have been a reference for Banjo, but beyond just Captain Black Eye, though, there's kind of like this ancient prophecy of a bear and a bird, and the bear and a bird combo is said to ward off sea witches, and you've got jiggies kind of factored into the mythology of the ancient coins a little bit, and all of this stuff, and
the Salty Hippo, the Jolly Roger Inn.
Yeah.
Treasure Trove Cove. They're all
referenced. Treasure Trove Cove is actually in the Sea of Thieves, just covered by the Devil's Shroud right now. So it's just a lot of Banjo stuff has been name dropped, which is kind of ironic considering the vitriol leveled at Sea of Thieves from some of the more militant Banjo enthusiasts online. But so you've got all of that, and in so many ways... Oh, and Donkey Kong has also been referenced. The Donkey Kong franchise has been referenced because we have the Glimmer constellation, and that's retroactively implied that the Kong's named Glimmer after the constellation. But you got all this stuff, and Sea of Thieves is kind of the omni-prequel to all of these Rare franchises, except in one circumstance now, where it is a sequel. And it's quite logical the way they've done this, but it's the Pendragon series, and I know a lot of you out there are like, what the fuck is the Pendragon series? I know everything about Rare. Rare's first game was Donkey Kong Country. Pendragon it's kind of the loose name for 4 interconnected titles from the Ultimate Play of the Game days. Would you like to explain a little bit more about Pendragon?
Yeah, so on the Commodore 64, back pre-Rare Ultimate Play the Game. They made 4 games. I think there's one that I can't remember the title of. It goes, Staff of Karnath, Entombed, Black Witch, and then Dragon Skull. And so these are adventures of this kind of aristocratic adventurer named Arthur Pendragon. Not to be confused with the Arthur Pendragon of mythology, the King Arthur. But he goes on these adventures. He goes through Egyptian tombs, and he goes on a pirate ship adventure and ends up at a dragon island with those magical artifacts and such. And basically, they reference this already at the very launch of Sea of Thieves. It already had a reference to this in it, which is that one of the more iconic islands in the game is called Shipwreck Bay. And Shipwreck Bay is named such because there is a very giant shipwreck on the island in this bay, I guess. And the shipwreck is the wreckage of the Black Witch, which is the name of the pirate ship in the Commodore 64 game, Black Witch. Which, through the course of that game, it ends up the case that Arthur Pendragon becomes the captain of that ship at the end, and it becomes his vessel, and he takes it to Dragon Skull Island, which is the sequel to that game. Mm-hmm. And we then are led to believe that at some point after the game Dragon Skull, he ends up in the Sea of Thieves and crashes on Shipwreck Bay, and there's a portrait of him in the captain's quarters of that wreckage. And up to this point, that was just this really cool Easter egg. And in fact, one of the riddles that you can do on a riddle quest, where you go and do something, when you do a riddle in the game, you do something on the riddle, and then it triggers this magical green smoke, and you get like a little musical chime, and you're like, yeah, and then it triggers the next stage of the riddle. If you do a riddle at this location at the shipwreck, you actually get a musical, chime from the game Black Witch, like the theme of that game. Mm. So all these little Easter eggs, very cool Easter eggs, which I think were put in there by Ryan Stevenson, the art director. I think that Chris Alcock told me that. But now we're almost 2 years into the game, probably a year and a half or more into the game, and they tied this bit of lore instead of this cute Easter egg, and they actually made an entire story about it. That is what the Seabound Soul is about. Yeah.
And so it was kind of marketed as, Arthur Pendragon, his ghost shows up. And so it was kind of billed as, in some ways, a sequel to the Pendragon series. And that's what this Tall Tale is, essentially, because Pendragon is kind of your ghostly guide throughout. And we learn his ultimate fate, like how he died, how he became a ghost. But then there's kind of a twist near the end where it's actually not just this nostalgic, oh, isn't this nice, isn't this a cute reference to an old Rare game. It's actually setting up a major component of Sea of Thieves lore. And really, I mean, this is the way I think if we ever have Captain Blackeye factor into the plot itself, rather than just Greg Mayall's personal fantasy, then this is how Captain Blackeye will be utilized. It won't just be Captain Blackeye is like the main antagonist. Captain Blackeye will be a means to an end to something else that's more native to Sea of Thieves itself, which is fine, which is the way it honestly should be. But what
I like about the way they tied Pendragon in here is it tied into the ongoing monthly story with these skeletons doing these rituals, and then we see that the same relics have been used in a ritual in the captain's quarters of the Black Witch ship, and we find that some mysterious figure, we don't know who, used those rituals to release Pendragon from a curse that was bound on him, that basically his soul was bound to the portrait in the Black Witch. And so his ghost has been in that painting the whole time Sea of Thieves has been out. And you've just been, going around digging up his treasure and stuff. And then...
just like Vigo, the Carpathian.
Yes.
Ghostbusters
reference. And basically, he's been released from his prison and then set on a mission by the same stranger to go and release some other pirates from their similar soul imprisonment. And this all kind of fed into some lore that we got in the previous Tall Tales, and it fed into some lore from the novels and stuff. And that's what I love about Sea of Thieves. It's always building on what's already there. It's kind of this never-ending continuation and build-up of a story, and that's awesome. So you basically go on this mission with Pendragon, who has a magic sword called the Sword of Souls, and he can use that sword to...
Which is actually... Isn't that from...
It is from...
Dragon Skull?
I think Dragon Skull. It is from the Pendragon games. It's an actual... it's a reference to those games. He had the Sword of Souls. And so the Sword of Souls lets him release souls from what object they're bound to. And in this case of the story, the pirate captains that we encounter were bound to their own skulls, which is pretty metal. And you go on this kind of puzzle mission. It's not really a puzzle. It's pretty straightforward. In fact, I'd say in terms of the mechanics and the trickiness of it, it's the most straightforward Tall Tale there is.
Oh yeah,
mechanically speaking. But what it loses in mechanical trickiness or complexity or depth, it makes up for in cinematics, because what it essentially is a long drawn out, very engaging, interactive cutscene.
Sort of like, to speak in the language of Rare fans, sort of like Conker's Bad Fur Day. Mechanically, not the best, but very interesting and engaging, interactive story.
Right. Yeah, and it's not like mechanically bad in the Seabound Soul. It's just like there's not really any puzzles to solve or trickiness to overcome. But you sail along, kind of just unearthing the story from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And so you release these captains. They're chasing a ship called the Ashen Dragon, which is helmed by some fiery skeleton boys, and we don't really quite know what their mission is, except that they've got a prisoner or some kind of cargo on hold that is also a trapped soul. And we go step by step. Again, spoilers, everybody. Releasing these captains, and they each give us a little bit more of the story and help us on our way to getting to the end game, which is to find where the Ashen Dragon delivered their cargo, which happens to be a casket in a sort of funeral procession, where they trapped this captain's soul inside of a tomb in a volcanic island.
Yeah.
And we want to save that guy, right? Obviously, we're going to go save that guy. That's Pendragon's whole deal, is we got to release souls. Nothing bad ever happens.
He was a trapped soul, and he's empathizing.
Right. Nothing bad ever happened from releasing a soul.
Right. Like, when the EPA shut down the containment unit and Ghostbusters reference.
Yeah, he's right, Your Honor. This man has no dick. It's Ghostbusters.
That's what I heard. So
cats and dogs living together. Ghostbusters.
Hey, Sea of Thieves though. What happened when we got to the casket? When we unleashed the spirit, it was a happy ending for all, and that was the end of Sea of Thieves. Roll credits. Everyone
was clapping. All the people you killed all stood up and revealed that it was all just a play, and they all had hugged and held hands.
Miyamoto nods.
Yes,
good job,
Good job, James Bond. So there's this awesome kind of funeral procession where what's cool about this Tall Tale is it reuses a mechanic from a previous Tall Tale, which is using this lantern that is enchanted, that when you cast the light of this ghostly lantern, it actually gives you the ability to see the imprint of ghosts, and sort of like playing a tape of like watching where ghosts traveled, and you follow their path to go and find the treasure, kind of scenario.
Kind of like psychic energy left behind.
Right, yeah, they imprinted this memory of like the ghost walked over here and that's where he buried his treasure, that kind of thing. And it's a really cool effect. It's really exciting. So you're following this funeral procession of skeletons that are carrying this casket, and they end up in this cave, and you go in, you open the cave, you find the skull, take it to Pendragon, and he releases the soul from the skull, which you've already done twice now. This is the third skull you've released, and you're thinking, oh, this is just another good guy. We just saved a couple good guys. Let's just save another good guy. What could one more hurt? And it turns out to be a bad guy named Captain Flameheart.
Oh.
Ooh.
Right. Which you might remember the name Captain Flameheart from the literary analysis Cameron and I did of the Tales from the Sea of Thieves book way back when. That was the first piece of Sea of Thieves EU, really, that was released. I think that was released the day Sea of Thieves came out. And it's kind of like an in-universe ship ledger that's been passed down from a couple different crews, but it was initially written by the character who becomes Captain Flameheart.
Yeah, and so Captain Flameheart is famous among Sea of Thieves fans in that he was hyped up pre-release in a lot of their marketing.
Along with the Gold Hoarder. As being this nefarious skeleton lord. And when the first set of Tall Tales came out, they added in skeleton lords as a mechanic in the game. They're like boss fights. And Gold Hoarder was like the big bad of that campaign. But Captain Flameheart wasn't involved in that story at all. And so that story really centered around the Gold Hoarder. Now this story, The Seabound Soul, is the first chapter of a new episodic arc. We've entered a new story arc, and it climaxes with Captain Flameheart's soul being released, and essentially him saying that, you know, he grew too weak, or he was betrayed, or whatever, and he ended up having to be locked away. And now that he's released, he's going to basically rebuild his army. It's a little bit like when Voldemort comes back to Harry Potter world, and he's like, well, I'm going to go and just operate in the shadows for a couple years, rebuilding my army until I can wage war on the world. And that's kind of what Captain Flameheart says he's going to do. And also Robert Pattinson dies again.
Yeah. Oh,
that was a really cool touch, just to introduce Robert Pattinson and then kill him.
Yeah. And he died. So Captain Flameheart gives this awesome speech where he kind of materializes as a ghostly mirage, a gigantic island-sized skull in the sky, and he gives a villainous monologue about how he's going to, you know, kick you in the nuts. And
yeah, it's basically it sounds like this like bitter old edgelord complaining how like soft everything has gotten about the world. Like, oh, you know, kids today with, you know,
you're having festivals. They hate festivals.
Yeah. Complaining,
he really doesn't like
about
festivals.
Complaining about like all the silliness that's been introduced to the game. Complaining that's not essentially it's almost like meta commentary, like Cranky Kong, complaining that the game isn't like a serious pirate game like Skull and Bones or whatever. Like,
yeah, it kind of, I love what they do. They kind of use the Skeleton Lords to give a voice to the more toxic voices in the fan base, and they say like this the Gold Hoarder versus the Pirate Lord is entirely a metaphor for Sea of Friends versus Sea of Thieves. Like this sort of like, should we cooperate to get the most treasure together, or is the game all about backstabbing and stealing from each other? And Flameheart is kind of that way, where he's like, oh, you guys are out having too much silly fun, and I want to introduce more badass, like, you know, just cutthroatness into the game. And so he gives a voice to that element of the fan base.
It's funny because he was giving us monologue right when I was holding the Corn on the Cob accordion from the Festival of Plenty, and
you're sitting here playing a Corn on the Cob accordion, and he says, people are too soft with their festivals.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, me? Put that away.
It felt like a direct shout out to my pirate character, which
he kind of gives an odd like shade at the mermaids too. He throws shade at mermaids, and I'm like, what's your beef with mermaid? What could a skeleton have against mermaids? It's a little weird, Flameheart. Where's your game here?
You know, but Flameheart hadn't really been brought up much in the almost 2 years prior to this appearance. Like, I think in the whole Cursed Sails story, like there was an allusion of Flameheart where Wanda and Salty, like they recovered some of Flameheart's ship, and that's where they got the cursed cannibals, maybe.
Yeah,
But it's been kind of
he's this implied figure of legend that kind of
Yeah.
has been gone for decades or something, but at one point was this very powerful force that kind of united the skeletons or something like that. And so it's this ongoing story where we don't really know his past or his future, because this is sort of a cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
He's out there and he's planning some nefarious plot, but that was 3 months ago, and he's still out there, and there's little tidbits happening since then. But really, it's like we're kind of stewing on that cliffhanger ending still.
It's really cool, though, because Sea of Thieves, of course, introduces this problem, or had this problem of, well, in the Sea of Thieves, pirates just immediately resurrect because the ferryman lets them come back through the door. So they got around this in the first set of Tall Tales in the Wild Rose story by introducing the concept that ghosts can be cursed and bound to objects, and then they don't go through the normal cycle of instantaneous reincarnation that everybody else does. And so that's kind of paying off here with Flameheart, whose ghost was bound and trapped, and now he's out there as a vengeful spirit. And
we actually even get the plot details that it was Arthur Pendragon who, under means of torture, taught Captain Greymarrow how to bound souls.
Yeah.
And then he himself was bound to a portrait. And then Greymarrow uses the same skills, the same curse, to bound the members of the Morningstar crew in one of the Tall Tales. And I think that maybe Captain Rook used the same thing against George in the Wild Rose story, something along those lines. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's this plot element where it's kind of their get out of jail free card of like, well, how do you have high stakes in a world where everyone instantly reincarnates? Well,
yeah,
there's curses.
It's a very rare kind of thing to have the game mechanics and game logic be explained in universe, and it's a deft balancing act, but everything is very much well thought out, and it's the kind of stuff that like maybe we would have to fan wank back in the day, but no, Rare is quite aware these days, and they're on it. So, yeah, it's like everything in Sea of Thieves, from Skellies to reincarnation to Ghost, has its place and a purpose and a reason. So, that's cool. But yeah,
Chris Alcock, one of the main architects of a lot of this lore, told me in an interview that Sea of Thieves has the most lore, has the most depth of lore of any Rare game ever. And this is the same guy who worked on Cameo. So don't bring up Cameo. Don't come at me, Cameo fans. Sea of Thieves has a deeper lore and more backstory than Cameo.
Yeah, and it does. It really does. Like it's hard to keep up with everything because, and like I said, plot threads going everywhere. And it's just amazing when they bring back an old plot thread. You're like, oh yeah, I sort of remember that.
Yeah. So yeah. Seabound Soul, other than that Tall Tale, which is ended in a cliffhanger, this really amazing story where Pendragon was kind of manipulated. Really, none of it was an accident. We've been manipulated to release the soul of Flameheart by that mysterious figure that released Pendragon, which is definitely Stitcher Jim, right? Like, it's got to be Stitcher Jim. But anyway,
we don't know.
We won't get into that. There's a lot of plot threads that are still hanging. But aside from just the Tall Tale that came out that month, there also was some cool other stuff. That month added the fire mechanics. Ships can catch on fire. Fire can spread throughout a ship. Players can catch on fire. You have fire bombs you can throw. Fire can knock down your masts. And you have a water barrel, so you can have a way to pump water and bail it and bucket it to put the fire out. And that is pretty much one of the biggest mechanical updates to the game this year. I would say it is the biggest mechanical update to the game since the anniversary update.
Yeah, it's definitely changed the way people play the game, because now there is this like element of, instead of just shooting cannonballs at people or firing your gun at them or swiping your cutlass at them, you can also catch people and ships on fire. So it's this kind of middle ground between death and sinking, and
I liken it to like a smoke bomb or something. It's like you can hit them with a cannonball, and that's direct damage that they're going to have to address, right? But if you hit them with fire, it's like a distraction. It's something they're going to have to address, It's not necessarily going to sink their ship, but if they let it get out of hand, it will become too much to handle, and it sort of distracts them so that they can't repair the other damage you've done, or they can't fight back, or they can't go on the offensive, so now they're completely stuck repairing damage or putting out fire, and it kind of is this big, useful distraction tool. And it has opened up a lot of possibilities, but it's also tied into the story because fire shows up the same time that Captain Flameheart shows up.
Yeah.
And
so
this Ashen Tomes, the Ashen Treasures event, also coincided with this.
A lot of thematic unity. And the Ashen Tomes, I almost feel like the Ashen Tomes were this directive or this solution to a directive where like, you need to add more Xbox achievements. You need to add more achievements because the game is still going, and you need to have a constant like update of achievements in the game. And they're like, okay, Ashen Tomes. Every Ashen Tome you get is a new achievement. Maybe that's me being cynical. I don't know.
This is them experimenting with a new form of month-to-month content delivery, and I don't know how well it succeeds, but it is something new and it is something cool. And basically they introduced this concept of ashen chests, and the ashen chests can be opened, but only if you get an ashen key. And so the way to get an ashen key and the way to get an ashen chest kind of vary month to month. They add more ways to do it, but they're all tied into monthly activities, sort of. And if you manage to open the chest with the ashen key, you can get an ashen tome. And the first month they added in 5 tomes, the Tomes of Curses. And each one that you get unlocks a new cosmetic, part of this Ashen Dragon set. And the Ashen Dragon was Flameheart, the ship that Flameheart's funeral was. It was part of the story of the Seabound Soul Tale.
Right.
So the Ashen Dragon, the Ashen Dragon cosmetic set, is now divided by these tomes that they release every month in this ongoing content delivery format, where they said, well, we've got the chests, you open the chest, you get one of the tomes, you get a tome, and you unlock one of the items in the set. And then every month they've added on to it. They've added new ways to encounter the chests, new ways to encounter the keys, and new tomes. So the second month they added in the Tomes of Fire, and there's 5 more tomes. And then in the third month they added in the Tomes of Power, and there's 5 more tomes. And then the next month, which is the one we're not going to talk about, added in the final set that just released a couple days ago, and it's the Tomes of Resurrection. So these tomes are basically they're books of skeleton curses, and we are going around trying to collect them because Duke, the bilge rat, thinks that he might be able to get some information out of them or something. In some way, since they exist, we think it's important that we collect them. And so it's all tying into Flameheart, though, because it's brought in new skeleton lords that are around fighting. The skeleton forts have suddenly become ashen forts, and they've got skeleton lords defending them. And the ship battles, the skeleton ship battles, those are now ashen ship battles, and they shoot fireballs. So it's all like Flameheart is gradually, month by month, kind of introducing new things into the skeletons' repertoires, and they're guarding these tomes, and there's new guards, and there's new keymasters, and they're all kind of patrolling the seas, and it's all building up to something. But in reality, it's just a way for them to trickle out a content delivery format that is tied to the story month by month.
Yes. Yeah. And so the Ashen Chest can be frustrating at times because, like you said, you need a key to unlock them. And so a lot of times we'll have a couple chests but no keys, and you have to go search. And I feel like it was easier to find the keys, and I think it's a lot easier now with the most recent update. But for a while there, keys were much more scarce than chests. Right. And if you wanted to unlock them and get an Ashen Tome, you had to have a key. You could still sell the chest, but only for like 5 doubloons, so it wasn't really worth it.
Yeah, so I said at the top of the episode, every month kind of has these greater commendations that are long term. But they also add in these voyages that are limited to that month, and the voyages make the long-term challenges easier. And with the Ashen Tomes, the very first month, they said, Well, you've got randomly encounterable keymasters, and that's how you can get a key. And you also have randomly encounterable guardians, and they are guarding a chest. And so if you randomly get the chest, then later you randomly get the key, you can combine them. But they also said, on top of that, this month only, we've got these voyages that get you to a guaranteed key.
Yeah.
And so it made it easier, but just for that month. And now that that month was over and those voyages went away, it's become harder to get the keys that you need because there's a bit of RNG to that. And then they've kind of improved it this upcoming month that we're not talking about today. But
right.
Yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting format, and now that they're done with it, because they've said that there's only going to be 4 sets of tomes, and in the next update, I think they will have completed the Ashen Dragon set completely. It'll basically have been this 4-month-long arc of doling out that content, and I'm curious to see what they do next, because I don't want them to just do another RNG, because it's RNG to get the key you need, right? And it's RNG to get the chest. But then you open the chest, and the tome that you find inside is also RNG. You might get a tome that you've already gotten before.
Yeah.
And that is some of the frustration, can be like, well, we finally got a key to open this chest, and the tome inside is one I don't need.
It really gets hard, too, when you only have, like discounting the Tomes of Resurrection, which they just added, which I need to get all of them. I only have, I think, one more tome I need to get. So it just...
I think I have 2, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's something like out of 15 different tomes at that time, I have to get 1. So the odds are just stacked against me.
Right. And each month they've added the new tomes. They've had one focus activity where they say, yes, you can find these chests at random. And if you find them at random, the tome you get will be completely random. But if you do this activity, like specifically if you do the forts this month, the chest you find inside the fort is guaranteed to be one of the 5 new tomes. And then you still have the RNG of like, well, which of the 5 will I get? But at least you're not getting last month's tomes that you've already gotten all of those. And they've done the same with the chest, with the Tomes of Resurrection in the new update that we are not talking about. But yeah, so we've kind of, this has been a big theme of these past few months, has been the tomes. We're constantly trying to get keys, trying to get the tomes out of the chests. And it's added this element of like, you're going about doing your own business, but you happen to encounter a chest. And now that you have a chest, you're kind of motivated to go out of your way to find a key. It's an optional thing where you're like, you found the chest at random, but now that you've got the chest, you'd like to find the key. So now you've got this added goal that is now in the back of your mind. You're like, yeah, we're doing our own thing, but we've got this other objective. We still need to find that key to open this chest, which is at times frustrating, but I think ultimately a cool mechanic that's added a little bit of something to, like flair to the proceedings, where you've kind of like, yeah, we're working on other objectives, but there's this background objective.
Yeah, whenever you get the skeleton orders, it's always kind of cool because it's like, oh, we have this like B plot we can focus on too in the middle of doing everything else. So again, it's going back to there's definitely not a lack of content now. You're always doing something, sometimes to a level of frustration because it's just too much on your plate. But that's a silly thing to complain about, really, that, oh, there's just too much to do in this game. It's only frustrating when you're focusing on the time limit accommodations. And again, if you're not somebody who's bothered by that, then it won't affect you at all. So, well, let's move on to the
festival.
The festival of giving, the holiday themed event that they put out right before they all left. Everybody at Rare left for the holidays. And,
all the good people left.
All the good people left to celebrate Santa Claus. And the Festival of Giving was this event where all of these gifts, these in-game presents, just... I don't know if they're ever going to explain this. They just washed around the Sea of Thieves. I
think the story was kind of like a shipment of them was coming to the Sea of Thieves to be like for the Festival of Giving. Mm-hmm. And the new skeleton lords that they introduced in that update sank them and they dispersed around the seas. And now they're kind of burying them and hiding them and hoarding them. Although
because
we don't really
they're
know what they
Scrooges.
are.
They're Grinches. They're just like, presents? Nah. Maybe it was just Flameheart. He was just like, I don't want them to celebrate.
My heart flamed 3 sizes that day. But it's we still don't really know what the gifts are because you can't open them. You have to deliver them only to the masked stranger. And the masked stranger is this entire other thing. But like they have the same kind of cloth color scheme on them that like she has near her base, and like, well, we don't really know. This is the thing. The story's still ongoing. We had the rag and bone crates and the ritual skulls and the Reaper's chest and all this stuff, and it's all tied into the masked stranger in some way, but we don't really know how. Like the Reaper's chests have bones inside them, and those bones, once you open the Reaper's chest, they get turned into a rag and bone crate. And then we had to like deliver those and bury those and stuff. And maybe it's an elaborate ritual. And then there's gifts involved. Now the gifts are a new thing. And we don't know why the mysterious stranger wants them, but she does. And since she's pretty obviously a bad guy, it's probably bad that we're giving them to her, but we don't know what they do. And she's paying good money.
So much of Sea of Thieves is that I'm doing this task that's very obviously going to end poorly for everyone involved in the Sea of Thieves, but I got to do it.
It's the tragedy of the commons. It's like, well, if all of us agreed not to give these gifts to the stranger, we probably could save the whole world. But what's even better is if everybody agreed to do it but me, so I could get that gold. And now everybody's just doing it.
It's like the perennial voting third party in a presidential election. That's what Sea of Thieves is. It just makes me feel good. I don't care if it impacts the rest of the world. It makes my conscience feel good. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna turn in this stuff to this masked stranger. That's what it's like.
Clearly building up some kind of dark cursed ritual monument, or like she's clearly involved in the plot to end all of our ways of life. But if she wants treasure, we're going to give it to her because she's paying good money.
Yeah. This masked stranger who was hiding out on the Reaper's hideout, which was previously, it was an island that existed in the game. I believe this was the island where Merrick crashed.
Yeah, the killer whale ship. Yeah, his ship, the killer whale.
The thing is, it was an uncharted island for the longest time. Like, we had to go there in the Hungering Deep, but it was just this island that wasn't on the map. You could just stumble across it. It's kind of near the middle of the Sea of Thieves, near where they have the arena set up, and set up like in universe, where they say like the arena is actually located.
The Arena Sea Dogs Tavern.
Yeah. You can explore the outside of it in the adventure, but you can only go inside of it if you're playing arena. But it's just the rare commitment to detail where they have to establish where it actually takes place, which of course we appreciate. But yeah, the Reaper's hideout was previously uncharted, but now in the last couple of months they've given it an official name, and the masked stranger has been hiding out on it, or not hiding out on it, like standing court, just like lording over it the entire time. And she has been an alternate means to turning stuff in. Sometimes you can only turn specific items into her, and then other times you have the option of, I can turn in this item where I could turn in on an outpost, but I could take it to the Reaper's hideout and not only get commendations, but get extra gold.
And so what it basically does is it turns this one location into a hotspot. It's like, it used to be if you want to deliver something to an outpost and somebody was camping that outpost, you can be like, well, I guess I'll just sail to another outpost. There's 7 of them. But when they say, well, certain items can only be delivered to one location on the map, and other items can be delivered there for double the gold, it turns that location into a hotspot where players might create conflict around it.
When I said we have to check out the server to see if it's hostile to a particular objective we have, I was specifically referring to this island. Like, you check it out and make sure nobody's camping it. Make sure because some people just wait there, and attack any player who tries to turn in something of high value.
Yeah, so this month, the Festival of Giving, that was the holiday month, they tied everything around that island because they had those gifts that Hyle brought up, and you could go on these monthly limited time quests to get the gifts and fight these skeleton lords. And there was also new tomes, like we discussed before. Every month they added new tomes, but it was all tied into getting these gifts that you could take to the Reaper's hideout. And there were commendations for selling those gifts, but more interestingly, there were commendations for having another crew sell your gifts, which is something they've never done before. Because sometimes in the past, they've done commendations that reward you for stealing. This one is a commendation rewarding you for giving or for being stolen from.
Yeah, so this would create this kind of strategy, which I believe you devised, or at least you introduced to our crew, where we gather a bunch of presents and we leave them on the Reaper's hideout. And I always want to call it the Reaper's hideaway, or Reaper's refuge is the name I wish it had, but Reaper's hideout. And we just leave the presents there, and then we just go about our business, do other stuff, and then hope that another crew will turn in those gifts over the course of our session.
Right.
And
sometimes you have great luck with that because other ships on the server are doing the same thing you're doing. They're sailing around, getting gifts, going back to the Reaper's hideout. And when they go there, they see your gifts, and they're like, other people left these. I better sell them for them because I'm a good guy. But other times you get a server where nobody is doing this limited time activity, and they're just going nowhere near the Reaper's hideout.
Yeah. And then Shane encountered something where a crew collected the gifts and just dumped them somewhere just to screw with him. Because some people are like jokers, they just want to watch the world burn.
Right.
And they're just there to ruin other people's attempts at progression, which those are the worst players in my opinion. But again, no wrong way to play Sea of Thieves, but you're a dick.
So selling the is worth doubloons to you. So even though, so I could sell it myself and I'd get doubloons, and that'd be a value to me. I need that. But if I leave it there and someone else sells it, they're going to get doubloons. So they're incentivized to do it because they get doubloons for doing it. But it also unlocks commendations for me, which I need to get more doubloons. So it's kind of a win-win. It's nothing in there motivates you to betray each other, really. Is structured around cooperation, and you're still not always going to get that just depending on the crews you run into. But ultimately, I had a lot of friendly encounters during that event.
Yeah, I had some friendly encounters, but I am very focused on completing commendations. And so far, I've completed all the time-limited commendations in these monthly events. So I'm proud of that. That pleases that center of my brain. That's very, very hyper-focused on organization and collecting. And it was getting down to the wire, though. And I had not gotten all the commendations for another crew turning in our gifts, because there were two different, there still are, the gifts are still in the game, weirdly enough, but there were two levels of gift. There were the humble gifts and there were the generous gifts, which are more rare. And I think I still needed a couple for each one for another crew turning in both types of gifts. And
I actually think it was one gift each. I think you needed one gift sold and I needed one gift sold, and that's the reason that I didn't just quit trying, because normally if I'm not close to getting accommodation done, I just don't take the time because I'm like, well, it doesn't really bother me if I don't complete it. But because I only had one left to do, I was motivated to jump in with you, and we both needed to get one more done.
Yeah, and it was like a day or two before the event ended, and even though gifts were still going to be in the game, the one time limit commendation was turn in like all the gifts or have them all turned in.
Oh yeah, this is the thing they've been doing. I'm really bothered by this. They'll come out with some commendations and none of them are time limited. They'll say, sell 15 gifts and have another crew sell 15 gifts of your gifts or whatever. And they've got these commendations and there's no time limit to do those. So if the event ends, you can still get it done later if you find some gifts, although they're not that common anymore. They're still around. And yet they add in one little commendation one little commendation. It says, complete all of this month's commendations to earn a bonus 50 doubloons and a title, and this is time limited to this month. If you put that in there, a commendation that just says complete all the commendations, you have just made every commendation time limited.
Yeah.
Because all of them are tied into this one. So you can't say, oh, all of these don't have a time limit except for one. In reality, they all have a time limit because you need to complete all of them to complete that one ultimate one. And they've done that a couple different months they've done that. I find it to be infuriating design. I think that it negates so much of the fact that you made the other ones not time limited.
If you care about the commendations, the time limited commendations, like me, it basically shackles you to the rest. Like, oh, I have to get them all done now. Like, there's no middle ground. So I'm not really sure what it is, except, well, maybe people won't care as much about this one title being time limited. Like, we'll keep the commendations, but this one aspect of it is time limited. Well, it doesn't matter if you're that hyper focused and hyper obsessed about it. It's all the same. So
anyway, long story short,
yeah.
Hyle and I hopped on to play in a sort of our last time we would have to play before the event would be over. And we were like, well, we got to get one generous gift sold by another crew. That's all we got to do.
Yeah, so what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then, as often in life, the answer was, well, we have to abduct a child. And
we did have to. I'm not even ashamed. You do what you got to do in this world.
It worked out. As opposed to most times in life where the solution presented seems to be, let's abduct a child. This actually worked out. So what was the series of events that led us to abducting a child?
We'd go get some gifts. This was our goal. We thought, we'll go get some gifts. We did the voyage. We got some gifts. We put a couple on the Reaper's hideout, so if somebody came along, they could sell them. We'd get the pop-up, and we'd be happy. But we also kept some on our own ship, so we could go around the server directly, like a door-to-door salesman, trying to directly invite or beg another crew to take them off our hands and go deliver them for us. Because sitting around waiting for someone to go to the Reaper's hideout, depending on what server you're on and what the other ships are up to, you might never get someone who discovers your gift. So they might never come along. So we're going door-to-door salesman style, and we see a sloop that's parked at outposts. It's got the Brave Vanguard sails on, which were exclusive to players who played the beta. And
the thing about the Brave Vanguard sails, well, the thing about the Brave Vanguard sails, Jeff, is that I used the Brave Vanguard sails quite a bit before they added the heritage, like the rare heritage ship cosmetics in the Pirate Emporium. So for me, like, seeing a Brave Vanguard, it's like, not only is this a person who's been around for quite a while, but they probably care about this kind of stuff. And it's
like the Jeep. It's like the Jeep nod. If you're an owner of a Jeep and you drive by another Jeep, you just give each other that nod where you're like, we both have sensibilities in common.
Right. So it's not like encountering the ghost sales, the pirate legend sales you can buy. It's kind of like this warm feeling of, oh, this person might have a similar mindset to us. Here we go. Let's go on there. Not only have they been around since the beginning, but they know also how things work, probably from month to month, because that's another problem we have, is that a lot of times players, especially newer players, don't understand what's happening in that month because they have very peculiar mechanics or things to turn in, and it's just not really explained to them.
They didn't read Golden Sand's blog post, and so they're lost as to what they're supposed to be doing, and they're just kind of going around sandbox style and not doing the objectives, and that makes it harder for everyone else to do objectives when they require cooperation or other crews' involvement. So we sail at the sloop, and we head towards them, and we get on the microphone. We're calling out to them, "Hey, we're friendly. We're cool. We're good guys. We'll suck your dick. Please stop, please." And it's essentially what happened is we made friendly contact with this player. We got on board their ship, and they were mute the whole time. They never actually responded in chat to anything we said. But they allowed us to board their ship, right? So we just gave them loads of treasure. We had villainous skulls, we had chests, and we had all these gifts. We brought all of it off of our boat onto their boat. We just gave them all this treasure, and I tried to tell them, go to the Reaper's hideout. That's where you need to go. And I went to their map table, and I circled the Reaper's hideout like 100 times and was like, go here. This is where you want to go. And this player was just kind of like, all right, cool. Like, he didn't say anything, but he gets back on his boat. We watch him leave. He drops his sails. He's standing there on his boat using the wave emote. So he's waving at us, and we're waving at him, and we're thinking, life is so good. And he sails into some barrels of plenty, just randomly occurring floating barrels in the water. And there was gunpowder barrels floating in those barrels. And we just watch, boom, 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 3 massive explosions go off as the ship sails away full speed from us and just sinks into the ocean. It was over in a matter of seconds.
So there's a lot of thoughts running through our head at this time. My first concern was this person is going to think we just bombed him, and like
right.
This was
the
all just a very like
aggression.
elaborate. Yeah, like this is just our way of toying with him. Like, oh, we're going to give him a lot of presents, and then we're going to attack him, and then take our stuff back, our treasure, our presents,
right.
everything back.
We're just
laugh at him.
The greatest way to kill anybody is be aggressively friendly, and then they'll never suspect it. That's like the weirdest serial killers in the world.
Well,
and,
but it's also a thing in Sea of Thieves where people will sometimes join your alliance, but they're not actually. They don't have any intention of being allied with you. It's just a cover, you know.
Right.
So even when you're in an alliance with somebody, you always have to kind of watch them with one eye open because they could be up to something.
So we're worried that this guy, he totally thinks that was on purpose, right? How could that have been an accident? He just got blown up, and so we pick up our treasure out of the water where his ship sank, and we're thinking we got to track that same guy down again because he's still our best chance of getting this done. He respawns somewhere else on the server. At least we hope. And this is where I get the idea that I'm going to stalk him on Xbox Live. And so, because I want to know if he's still playing the game. So I find him on Xbox Live, and I find that he is still sailing the seas. But I also start stalking through his achievements, and I learned that he, based on his achievements, just started playing the game like 9 days ago. So this is actually not a Brave Vanguard. This is a completely brand new player to the game, and this is very possibly the first time other crews have ever friendly boarded his ship and given him treasure. He's probably entirely confused as to what just went down.
Yeah, and he probably had the Brave Vanguard sales because a friend of his who has been playing since the technical alpha got him into the game and was sailing with him, and then he left, and then he was just left behind on a sloop with the Brave Vanguard sails.
Or he joined random open crew. It's hard to know.
Yeah.
So now we've suddenly recontextualized everything we think about this kid. No longer is he a like-minded connoisseur of Sea of Thieves, has been around since the beginning. Now he's an innocent, brand new child. Who
still dripping with placenta.
He's a baby nut, and he just spawned into the world and got blown up by fake friendlies who give him treasure and then watch him blow up. And so we start sailing around. We're looking for this guy. We're like, we have to make this right. We're sailing around the seas, and we see a ship kind of sailing back towards where he went down. And so we're like, well, that could be him. Let's go that way. So we go. We sail, we find the sloop. Actually, right before we get to him, his mast goes down, and I'm not even sure how that happened. I think it might have been he was struck by lightning from the storm that he sailed through, but it was kind of weird. His mast just falls down. So that allows us to catch him. We get up to him, we catch up to him. And this time, I'm not waving, hey, I'm friendly. I just get right on his boat and start fixing his mast and fixing his damage.
Yeah, because I was barking at you. I was like, we got to fix this ship, Jeff. Like, let's go.
We don't want him to sink.
I'm not going through this again. I mean, I would if I had to, but I don't want to lose him again because he might just quit at that point.
he's our best friend now, and we don't want to lose him. So I repair his ship, and we do the same scenario. We bring all the treasure over. We start loading the treasure onto his ship. And this time, I don't go back to my ship and get on and start waving goodbye at him. I dropped his sails, grabbed his wheel, and started sailing him to the Reaper's hideout. I didn't say anything to Hyle or to him. And at one point, so Hyle's following behind, and Hyle says something like, is he going to the Reaper's hideout? And I said, no, I am. I'm piloting his ship now. And this is how kidnapping happens.
Yeah, and a lot of things could have transpired at this point. He could have attacked Jeff for commandeering his ship and forcibly taking him to an undisclosed location. He could have quit entirely, and then we would have just been left with his ship, which wouldn't have counted because we needed him to physically turn in our presence. So a lot of things could have gone wrong. Still, even with Jeff controlling his ship, and somehow they didn't.
He just let it happen.
He let it happen, or he knew what Jeff was doing. I'm not really sure.
I give off an aura of trustfulness, of trustworthiness, and so clearly he knew that he just had to write it out and see what happened. Because also
Jeff,
you were on our tail. You were on his tail.
You would be one of the few people who would be able to drive a windowless white van without raising suspicion, because people just trust you.
People would be like,
there goes Jeff Onan.
Oh, he just delivers carpets in the back. There's nothing weird about that. He's a carpet delivery man. I do have a mustache, but I also have a beard. So I feel like the beard negates any creepiness of the mustache. You could tell me from your perspective, because I'm kind of too close to the situation to weigh in.
Here's the thing. You can pull off a beard now because you resemble Tom Holland, but give it 20 years when you're older, and you might just come across as a crazy hermit man who sends bombs to universities and airports.
I did go to the university that the Unabomber went to, so... Hey! Anyway, so... I've kidnapped a child. I've stolen his vessel. We're sailing to the Reaper's hideout. We get there, and everything goes to plan. He sells the treasure. We kind of... It's hard to walk through someone what you want them to do when they're not responding to your messages on mic at all, and you can't tell if they can understand you, and you just like pick up a gift, walk it to the Reaper, to the masked stranger, and you just stand there holding it like, please, take this and deliver it. I don't know if you can hear me. You've been silent for an hour. I need you to take this off my hands. And he just does it, and you're like, yes.
I've never had sex with somebody who speaks a completely different language than me. And no, so I imagine this is a lot like having sexual relations with somebody who doesn't speak your language, because you're like, is this okay? Are we doing everything we want each other to do?
It's entirely through ephemeral like body language, and you're like, well, how do I read a player avatar's body language in Sea of Thieves? It's just so awkward, but yeah, he did it, and I think that it was probably both the weirdest but the best experience that brand new player ever had in Sea of Thieves, because he got a ton of free treasure. He got boarded and had his ship commandeered, but in a friendly way. I called it aggressive friendliness.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be your friend and I won't take no for an answer friendliness, and it was great.
It's one of those moments that really Sea of Thieves operates in at its best, the sandbox experience. It's the kind of stuff that I think Rare was really hopeful for before the game came out. These player interactions that are just weird and sublime and lightning in a bottle. And this is what I really love and what I remember. Like, and the events that really foster this. Skeleton Thrones was another one where, you had to, align with other crews and sit in chairs together. So fucking weird, but definitely led to some good memories. Hungering Deep was, I think, the all-time quintessential experience where to carry a drum beat across the ocean, I had to ride back on another crew's sloop, and just weird stuff like that. And this is definitely right up there with them, even though we're the ones who made it happen, it's still a very fond memory I will carry with me for the rest of my days. Kidnapping a child. Everybody.
We did kidnap that child, and he loved it. And I might stalk him back up again on Xbox and see if he's still earning achievements and see he's still playing the game. Because I hope that we motivated him to keep going. We
call him a child. We don't even know if he's a child. We're just...
Well, when someone is wearing just the pure sailor outfit, you find out that they've only been playing the game for 9 days, and then they don't talk to you at all in-game except wave at you and spam the thanks, the word thanks through the message wheel. There's just something about that comes off with such a childlike innocence.
Yeah.
And he didn't call me any slurs.
Yeah.
It was great.
Which is always nice.
He was an innocent child that we guided to good times through our kidnapping.
Even if he's like an 85-year-old man, he'll always be a sweet summer child in the world of Sea of Thieves to me.
It was a good time. That same event, the Festival of Giving, also gave us another very different experience, which was going through the Maiden Voyage.
Oh, yeah. So the Maiden Voyage is another new tall tale-ish by definition, but it's basically Rare got the notion that the way they throw players into the game isn't actually teaching them anything, and that a lot of players play the game without knowing how to play the game, and some people don't stick with the game as a result. So they realize we sort of need a tutorial mode. We sort of need a Spiral Mountain to speak the language, or Cranky's training area to speak the language of 3D platformers from the late 90s. We need that in Sea of Thieves. And so they introduced one, the Maiden Voyage. And this event shows how your pirates got to the Sea of Thieves. And so it actually takes place canonically outside of the Sea of Thieves on an island, I guess, in the British Virgin Islands. But this fictional island that you've landed upon, and the ghost of the pirate lord of Ramsey kind of guides you Obi-Wan style to the Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, it's kind of a long time coming type of thing. It's sort of, when the game launched, there was obviously a lot of different ways in which it needed to be fleshed out. That's where the complaints come from, that it was light on content. And they've gradually done that. And I think that it was probably beyond time where they made the focus of their attention specifically on the experience for new players. Because, part of the thing with Sea of Thieves is not knowing what you're doing almost is a feature and not a bug. It's a social feature. It's a thing where you're required to interact with other people to kind of learn the ropes. It's this thing where they kind of, at their very earliest vision of the game, didn't even envision it really being played solo.
Yeah.
And so it's all kind of remnants of that initial pitch that this game is meant to be played with 4 friends or 3 friends and yourself. And we're beyond that. The game can be played solo. Probably the vast majority of people that jump into the game jump in solo, and there needs to be a bit more of a guiding hand than just leaving you to the wolves. And so the Maiden Voyage is an awesome way of doing that, because it's not just... It's what I think of as it's Rare's way of doing a tutorial, because it walks you through things in a kind of organic way. It's got a bit more UI than usual for the game, because it's necessary, but it's still very organic. And on top of all that, it's loaded with like exploration and lore. You've got all these hidden journals that you can discover, and each one acts also as part of the tutorial, because they give a little bit of information. Like, you find a journal that's like, this is how mermaids work, but it's framed like... It's not framed like, even like in Banjo-Kazooie, where a tutorial, you get this mole man, this dead hamster man, who comes up and says, press the B button to do this, and the B button appears in a UI pop-up. In Sea of Thieves never does that, although a little bit they do. It's more of like an in-lore, immersive way of explaining how things are done. And I like that a lot. But it also, it's giving these tidbits of lore as it does that, and it's really cool. And the island itself is just cool to explore. You've got this the shipwreck of the Magpie's. What is it called? It's not the Magpie's wing.
Fortune?
The Magpie's Fortune. I think that's it. I think that is what it is.
The problem with Sea of Thieves is there are so many things that sound like other things.
Yeah.
And they have like the same 30 words they reuse in different contexts. So
Right.
the joke is the devil's blank, and so I do have this problem where I'm like, the Magpie's Fortune, but no, that there's Athena's Fortune, but
It's
maybe
like
it
the
is...
word board. You use a board to board up a ship, and you are bored if you played the game back in March of 2018.
Well, I was thinking brig, because you can be
the
locked in a
brig
brig, or you
and the
can
brig.
sail a brig, and yeah.
The Forsaken Shores was the name of the update that added the Devil's Roar, and the Devil's Roar is one of the many Forsaken Shores, etc.
And the Devil's Roar was accessed because the Devil's Shroud parted.
The Shroud Breaker was the name of the ship that got to the Devil's Roar, and it was also the name of the artifact that allows you to pierce the shroud.
Yeah, and the song Bad Company was from the album Bad Company, recorded by the band Bad Company.
Yeah, I remember that. So, what are your impressions on the maiden voyage? Because here's what happened. The maiden voyage is actually interesting in terms of the game because it is the only thing you can do in the game where you load into a private instance of a server where no other players are present, even in your own crew. It's entirely a single-player experience.
Yeah, because even the ninth tall tale, The Shores of Gold, it essentially takes place like, the furthest point you can be in the game from any other islands or activity, but you're still in the same server. So theoretically, another crew could show up, but it's just very, very unlikely. But here you are on your own private little piece of game architecture. And for me, as somebody who the joy of Sea of Thieves, the reason he loves it, and it's in his top 4 favorite games of all time, of course, with Donkey Kong Country 2, Banjo-Kazooie, and Grab by the Ghoulies, obviously, or OV, as I like to say now. The reason I love the game so much, it's a rare game that I can play and hang out with my friends from around the world, because all of my friends are around the world. So if I want to hang out with them, I either need to do it, just tippity-typing on the internet, or I hang out with them in a shared rare world, which, it's like my favorite thing, my favorite type of media. So that's why I love Sea of Thieves. On the flip side of that, Sea of Thieves I find to be a terrifying, disorienting, upsetting experience when I play by myself. I can do it in a pinch, but it is just so alien to me. It is so, desolate to play Sea of Thieves by myself, and literally everything scares me as a result. And I think it's just because I don't do it much. So when I actually sit down and play Sea of Thieves by myself, just the mere act of sailing is kind of unnerving.
It's jarring. You're like, there's nobody talking to me. Because
There's
every
nobody talking to
waking
me.
moment that you've ever played Sea of Thieves, you've also been having a conversation while doing it.
Right. I don't have Cameron puking off the side of the ship or throwing buckets of vomit at me. I don't have you yelling at me to lower the sails or raise the sails. I don't have Shane talking about socialism. It's just like, what is happening? So it is hard for me to play the game by myself. And that's more a comment on my own brain than it is against the game. But I think some people have commented that sailing Sea of Thieves by yourself is scary. And I'm somebody who has been open about the fear of the unknown in games was what terrified me as a kid, and not knowing what was going to come next. Gave me nightmares. Super Mario Brothers, when I first played that, after I got my NES, I would have nightmares about the terrors that would come in later worlds. And so I think that's a lingering part of my psyche. And so this whole notion that you'd be playing Sea of Thieves by yourself, you have to play Sea of Thieves by yourself, I wanted to stream this, but Jeff, thankfully you offered the idea of why don't we stream it in party chat, and I could provide commentary because it might be a little bit boring having you stream it. But this gave me the out too, is I would have somebody to talk to, and it would give me a little bit of that semblance of what I love about Sea of Thieves, even in this strictly single player experience.
Right.
So that's what I did.
On top of that, I could offer you hints as where to go to find the secret hidden, because it would probably take you over 3 hours to find everything running around by yourself.
Some of that stuff was very well hidden, so it was a good thing to have you kind of as the tipsman, the man who gives me his tip, and
just a little baby nut.
So we did that, and the thing about the main voyage, if you have already played the game prior to the installation of the main voyage, is you can play it at any time from the main menu. You have to press the button to access it, but otherwise, you don't ever have to play it if you don't want to. This created an interesting continuity wrinkle for me, though, because when you load into the main voyage, your pirate is dressed as your pirate currently is, with all of the cosmetics, and some of the cosmetics reflect events in the game that happened like months ago, or from the outset of the game. Like you could have cosmetics that have the that they were introduced when the here I go again. Devil's Roar was added to the game in the Forsaken Shores update. And so since my pirate joined the game at the beginning, he predated that stuff being in the game. So suddenly he's wearing it.
Right. So basically what you're saying is this main voyage is supposed to be the story of how you got to the Sea of Thieves. And since we've been playing for a while, that means that when we play it, it's a prequel. And yet you're wearing the clothes that you're wearing today.
Exactly.
So obviously you have to just think of it as that your pirate is misremembering details, and it's a bad memory flashback.
It is exactly the explanation we use to explain Live and Reloaded's discrepancies with Conker's Bad Fur Day. And actually, this is how they presented Live and Reloaded in the Player's Guide, weirdly enough. I Am Gibbon found that out for us when he went on his Conker Bad Fur Day / Live and Reloaded spending spree, being that he is now the world's preeminent expert on both the arcade era of Donkey Kong and Conker. Just
a man of two trades.
I just love that he has operated two vastly separate realms of our fandom. And so like, okay. So by way of Rusty Pup, weirdly enough. So anyway, my explanation, and this was, I think, supported by Chris Alcock because he watched this, he watched the Mixer archive of this, and he told us about it.
I think he was in the chat live while we recorded it. He might have been.
Okay. Either way, he eventually got back to us, and he approved our rationale that this is, if you play the maiden voyage after the fact, it is your pirate remembering how he or she got to the Sea of Thieves, but they're doing it through the prism of their current occupancy in the Sea of Thieves, so they look like themselves as they currently do, which I like, and it's a nice
right. Like when I go back in time and remember things I did years ago, I'm remembering it from a first-person vantage point, so I don't really remember the way I'm not remembering the way I looked then. I'm just thinking of myself as myself. And so really, when I remember my past selves, unless I was a little child, I probably remember myself looking the way I do now and not looking the way I did then.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
the
other wrinkle, though...
It's like the nightmare I have where I'm back in elementary school, and I never graduated elementary school, but I'm a man in his 30s. And it's just like, well, this is mortifying. This is my secret shame. I never graduated elementary school.
Yeah, back to school. It's an Adam Sandler classic. So The other wrinkle, though, with the continuity or how you want to think of it, is that when you complete the maiden voyage, you get a stash of gold and doubloons. And this one is an easy one to explain away, but it does introduce the problem that needs explaining. Because if you complete the main voyage and you get this gold and this doubloons, why didn't we get them why didn't we have that money when we first started the Sea of Thieves game?
Exactly.
And the answer is that when you complete the main voyage, you sail and you wake up drunk inside of a tavern, and you don't really remember anything. And this actually does happen in game. You wake up drunk at the table in the tavern, and you kind of have to be walked through how to do voyages and stuff. And we rationalized that we got to the Sea of Thieves and got drunk at the tavern, and that is why we forgot the whole maiden voyage journey. But it also is because we forgot where we buried our stash of gold and doubloons that we got when we did the main voyage. And at some point in the future, we are caused to remember that we did do the main voyage, and then we relive that memory when we're playing the main voyage. We're reliving that memory, and at the end of it, we get our stash of gold and doubloons, and that is us remembering where we stashed it, and now we have it.
And it just forces making you relive the whole experience over again in your head, like, oh yeah, them's were the days. And yeah, so it works out. It's a little sloppy, and I was very like upset initially. I was like, wait a second. How does this work? Time out, everybody. I'm Zach Morris, and I'm going to freeze everyone because I'm God. And we rationalized it, and it was fine. I love the maiden voyage, but it was absolutely terrifying for me. And Jeff, you were like losing your shit at me because I was like having as close as I came to an anxiety attack playing Sea of Thieves. And just the act of sailing through the Devil's Shroud. And this is like completely almost like on rails. It's like the game, it's fail proof, but I didn't realize that. And I'm like, they want me to sail through the Devil's Shroud without a shroud breaker, without my crew. This is just like the fear of the unknown gripped me in real time. And you were just like, Hyle, what are you doing? Hyle. And I'm, and then they have like this event where like I think the Megalodon appeared. Oh, and this is also another thing, because how does a Megalodon appear before the Hungering Deep when your crew were responsible for the resurrection of the Megalodons, waking them up?
You just have to rationalize that within the shroud itself, the Megalodons are safely swimming around, and no one sees them in there because you don't spend a lot of time in the shroud. And then there have been some that were already awake, but they stay in the shroud.
It wasn't a widespread thing, right? And the same thing with the Skelly ships. They did the building of the Skelly ships didn't happen en masse until Curse Sails, but prior to that, they had exploratory committees. Like constructing one or two, on the fringes of the Sea of Thieves.
Worst case scenario, just your pirate is a drunk and you can't remember details. You ever have a memory that you convince yourself a detail of it is true, and because someone told you the story and you're like, yeah, I guess I remember that, and then it just becomes a memory, but it's not even true? That happens.
No.
You've never...
I know it's a thing, but I don't think it happens with me because I care so much about continuity. And no, I guess the one time it did happen was I was convinced Daly called into the show once, and I asked her about it, and it never happened. And the idea was planted in my head because somebody thought Daly called into the show and presented this evidence, and then the memory was put in my head. But that's the only time it's ever.
Well, the trick is you probably don't know what aspects of the memories you have are not true.
Yeah.
So it could be it could have happened to you more and you don't even know it.
But I am very vigilant about lore, even my own.
Even real life lore. Anyway.
It was cool to see looking beyond the veil, literally, of like how our pirate got to the Sea of Thieves, because a lot of this stuff is stuff only described in the EU, the expanded universe materials, not what the United Kingdom just left, but the expanded universe of Sea of Thieves, the novel by Chris Alcock, or the comic series by Jeremy Whiteley, or the Tales from the Sea of Thieves ledger. They all describe or show the crew
Oh, and the
or
tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
Did
which
you already
we will
say
be
that one?
discussing as well. No.
Oh, good.
But we will be discussing that as well in the conversation. In between all these Sea of Thieves catch-ups, we will be talking about various aspects of the expanded universe as well. So, yeah, like, they're always described in this stuff with the protagonist coming through the Sea of Thieves, but we never saw it in-game until now. So it's kind of cool to see a precise visual representation of it. So,
and it's also just in terms of level design. This is you have the Shores of Gold, but then this is also just one of the only examples of a piece of geography or a piece of geometry that has been designed in Sea of Thieves for a particular objective, like single linear story kind of thing. Whereas most of the islands in the game are kind of designed for just general exploration and infinite repetitive tasks. And so when you see them design a level that's like, well, there's an objective. It's supposed to lead you along a path, and you experience each of these tutorial moments. And then there's these hidden areas where they've got the hidden things. And it's all designed like a different kind of game than Sea of Thieves usually is.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because you see the fact that they knock it out of the park. It's such a well-designed layout of an island. It's iconic. It's cool. It's fun to explore. And it for a gameplay purpose, the way it's laid out and the way it leads you along, it all is really well done. And I love it.
Yeah, I think it joins the pantheon of iconic rare islands in a way that some of the islands in Sea of Thieves, by their purpose, really can't do.
Yeah, a lot of them are just kind of there. Yeah, so getting into the last of the updates of this catch-up, we had January's update. Following on from that, and the other thing we didn't talk about, we won't have to talk a lot about, but with the holiday season, they also did a calendar of giving, where you log in every day and they give you a new voyage and a new gift and stuff. There's not a lot to say about that other than it was just, I think, them experimenting with a new type of content delivery.
Yeah. I think like one day they gave you a cosmetic, like I got the fishing rod with the obsidian set.
It was like every day there's some aspect that is like double XP. Like today the Hunter's Call is double XP. And if you play today, so it kind of gave people some ways to grind it gave you a daily focus to grind a certain company, but also gave you voyages you could do during that time. And I think it's them experimenting with some of the types of content delivery that a lot of other living games have with daily content. And there's not much more to say to it other than that. But moving on to January, The Legends of the Sea.
Legends of the Sea. So they kind of do this like twofer. Like they focus. They add something new to the game and a new Bildrat quest, in this case Legends of the Sea, but they also continue on with the Flameheart story, or the allusions to Flameheart, and the attempts to, I guess, give him a body. I think that's where this is all leading to. The Masked Stranger is an advocate, a disciple of Flameheart, and she's spearheading this way to fully resurrect him. So you've got Legends of the Sea, which is this new kind of separate thing you can do, not time limited. It's just there in the game permanently, and it's kind of cool because there's no like drive to say, okay, we got to focus on Legends of the Sea today, guys. No, it's just we'll do these as we go along, should the opportunity arise. It's just looking at Easter eggs. That's all it is.
Yeah, and so what that entails is a character from the expanded universe named Umbra finally has made her debut in this is what I love about Sea of Thieves. They're always kind of they come up with a new thing they're going to do, and then they kind of think, well, what's the best way to implement that? Do we bring in an old character? Does it make sense to use them? Do we create a new character? How does this tie into the lore? And so it's all kind of this part of this ongoing thing. And so they brought back Umbra, and Umbra is this tattooed explorer who is basically a historian. It's how she's described in the tabletop RPG, but basically she wants to document the Sea of Thieves. She wants to document the adventures that have happened. And the way that plays out is that along the way, since they released the game and as they've updated the game, they've added in these Easter eggs that commemorate real-life players and things they've done. And sometimes it's simple stuff like, well, this is the player who died the most during the alpha, and so they get commemorated in the game forever. And other ones are more like things that went viral. Maybe there's this 5-year-old kid drew a cute picture of their favorite island, and it went viral online, and so they wanted to commemorate that, and they put this little kid's drawing in the game, and this is awesome tributes, and they've got it like I think there's 50 of them, different players at different times being commemorated. And Umbra wants you to document them all, and so it used to be these were just ambient Easter eggs. They just existed. You couldn't do anything with them. And if you saw them, you probably didn't know exactly what they were other than that they were some reference to something. And now they've made it so that all of the Easter eggs are interactable. When you see them, you can press the X button or press the tooltip to read a little bit of an explanation and provide context. And then you get rewarded for collecting those, for like finding them all. And you get rewarded with tattoos because Umbra, as a storyteller and historian, is obsessed with tattoos, and she tattoos her own story on her body. It's a really cool little activity. It's this sort of ambient thing, like Hyle said. You don't have to go around just discovering Easter egg after Easter egg. You can kind of do your normal routine, your voyages, and go island to island, and then be like, hey, by the way, we're on this island. Are there any Easter eggs here? And be like, oh yeah, there is one. Let's look for it. And you just kind of do it while you're doing all this. It's this B plot sort of side activity.
It's only really irritating when you're doing, say, an Athena voyage and the skellies are at their maximum difficulty and spawning every
constant
5 seconds.
Gunpowder barrels, yeah.
Yeah, so you're there trying to look at an Easter egg and read it, and then all of a sudden you get exploded.
Pretty fun. Yeah. I think it's a really cool, simple activity that they came in fully fleshed out. We have an NPC that is tied to this. We have a shop of new tattoos. It's this kind of expansive activity. It's going to take you a while to complete, and it's tied into something people find interesting, which is the Easter eggs, but it gives them more of a role in the game and more of a focus, and you can get the context behind them and be like, well, there was this name tag over the fort with snakes on it. I've seen that 100 times, but I don't know what it means. And then you read the description when they finally added these descriptions, and it says, oh, some pirates came and completed this entire fort using only baskets of snakes. And you're like, that is so cool.
I actually missed that story completely, and I think that was the most impressive fact I learned during this, because like, well, that's really cool. Like, okay, yeah, they deserve that. That's
right.
Like some of them, I'm just like, okay, Amir, you fell the most during one session. All right. Take that, Amir. But other ones are like, whoa, like they actually spent the time like messing with the game, trying to make this work. Like, I wish I had thought of that. Bravo.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yeah. Also, too, it has the added benefit of educating newer players about events in the game that have already come and gone.
True.
Because Umbra takes a look at all of Sea of Thieves history, so you've got like events like a Festival of the Damned, like, oh yeah, here's what happened during this particular moment in time. Stuff you can still do in the game, and then some stuff that's come and gone, like Hungering Deep.
Yeah, see, the thing with all these events, every time they add in these objectives, a lot of the times the objectives are long-term, not time-limited. The content is technically still there, but it was part of a moment in time story, and the story has moved on. And so there's elements of that you can't ever repeat or can't ever re-experience. And so it is nice that Umbra also commemorated those with her own journals that say, oh, Merrick sent you on a quest to release the Hungering One, and once you defeated her, it awakened all of her babies, and or whatever. That's just cool to have that little bit of dialogue in the game that says that thing that is gone forever did happen. Evidence of it is still here. And that's cool.
Yeah. But also the flip side of the very passive, do as you please, look at the Easter eggs kind of stuff that were added in January were the Golden Reapers bounties, which, oh my god. So this continues the story of the Masked Stranger, the Reapers' hideout, and perhaps the resurrection of Flameheart. But in the game, there are these Reaper's chests, as they're called, because they usually appear when a beacon goes off in the ocean. This energy ribbon, kind of similar to the Kremlin source from Donkey Kong Country 2.
I was thinking when they open up when they turn off the machines in Ghostbusters.
Oh, Ghostbusters reference, yeah.
The ribbons come into the sky of light.
Well, we do have Keymasters, so...
Oh, Ghostbusters reference?
Oh, Ghostbusters reference! So, those are attached to Reaper's chest, and those are found in shipwrecks. When the beacon goes off, you can be anywhere on the map, anywhere on the Sea of Thieves, and see it on the horizon, and you're like, let's check the map table, see where this is, and you'll see a little...
icon.
What do you call it? Icon, little Reaper's mark on your map, your map on your map table, which is where I put my map, and you're like, okay, it's there. That's all the way on the other side of the sea. Let's not even bother about it. Or it's like, oh, we're right next to this. Let's go get it. And then you grab it. But the problem is, then that little icon, little Reaper's mark, it's still there, and now your ship is attached to it. And so any other crew looking at the map can see, hey, they have a Reaper's chest.
Right.
Let's
so
get 'em.
The big change with this update is that they've made it so that they've elevated the Reaper's hideout to be this zone of turning things in. And it had been that way before, where you could turn in certain things there, but now you can turn in a lot more things there, and a lot of things that you used to be able to turn into Duke, you can't anymore. And that includes Reaper's chests. They have to be turned in at the Reaper's hideout now. And for that reason, the fact that you're on everybody's map table, they can track you, and they know your destination. There's only one place you can go to reap the benefits of that, no pun intended, Reaper's chest.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for conflict very intentionally. And they added a new one, is the main thing.
Yeah, they added the Golden Reaper's chest, or the Reaper's bounty, but this is signified by a golden energy ribbon, and they appear at a very frustratingly low rate sometimes. We've played 6 hours at a time and never saw one. Never saw a single one spawn.
I get the feeling we might have had bad luck, because I've heard the opposite from other people, and I think it's just a low sample size. But
yeah, no, because then I've played one night. Cameron and I played off stream, and we got 2 within a matter of 2 hours. And they just spawned right next to us, and we were like, let's grab it. We were at the outpost, and it was just right next to us. We're like, let's get it. And that's how we got so ahead of the rest of the crew, because we had to turn in 5 by the end of the month to get the time limited title. And
this is the thing they did again. They had a bunch of commendations. They said, sell X number of captain's chests to the Reaper's hideout. It's not time limited. Sell X number of villainous skulls to the Reaper's hideout. It's not time limited. Sell crates of silk. Sell chests of legends. Sell Reaper's bounties. None of these accommodations are time limited. And then they have this one combination that says, do all of those things, and you get a title, but that is time limited for the month. And so it makes every one of them time limited. I think it's the worst thing in the world. Please don't do that again. I don't know if anybody
I haven't checked to see this month if there's any.
There's not.
Are there any like that this month?
No.
Okay,
this
good.
month, the only time limited things this month are to complete each of the time limited quests for each region. There's like one for each region, and all you have to do is complete each quest. Nothing else is time limited. So it's going to be an easy month in terms of the deadline, at least.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about that month. We're talking about last month, January.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
it's just frustrating because, like, I did everything except the Reaper's bounties just because they never really popped up when I was playing. And so I didn't get that
you
title.
Could also get them through. You could also get them through skeleton orders randomly. I think.
Yeah,
like
we did them the one time.
Dig them up.
Yeah, the skeleton orders is like a randomly occurring captain on an island, and you find that skeleton, and you're like, oh well, I'm gonna kill this guy. And when you kill him, he drops a quest. It's called Skeleton Orders, and it's just a map to dig up some pretty valuable stuff, but it's totally random what you get. And we discovered that did include the Reaper's bounties. But
then a crew was actually camping the Reaper's hideout, and we didn't get that one turned in. But that gave us hope. We were like, oh well, we can get the Reaper's bounties through other means than waiting for the golden beacons to pop up. But ultimately, it didn't matter for those of us on the crew who got all 5 because we got them all through the beacons anyway.
I didn't get all of them, and my mentality is that I've basically given up on the idea that, oh, I gotta get them all done, because it's just not the most fun way to play. And like, I play the game a lot. You know, I have a weekly arena session where I play 3 or 4 hours of arena, and then I play adventure mode with you guys. I play adventure mode sometimes with other people, and sometimes I have another arena session with other people, separate from my usual arena crew. And I'm not going to like cancel my usual plans because I'm like, well, what I really need to do is get one more Reaper's bounty and not do anything else. It's just not fun for me. Or I'm also not going to be like, well, I'm really busy with all this other stuff, but I have to cram another play session in this week more than I usually do because I got to get it done. And I had the time to get it done, but I'm not going to change my schedule to get a commendation done that ultimately doesn't mean anything to me. But I've kind of reprogrammed my brain to think of like, the monthly stuff is a suggestion. It's giving you something to do if you're the type of the player that really needs a suggestion of what to do and needs a little bit of structure. But ultimately, if I don't get it all done, I'm okay with that because there's a lot of other stuff in the game that I want to do. And it's not the only video game I play, but there's also that.
Well, yeah, but yeah, I can't be as free as you, Jeff. I need a little bit of a shackle on me to get me off, honestly, because that's my kink. But also to play Sea of Thieves. So anyway, yeah, it was a very, very high stress experience until Cameron and I kind of edged ahead and we realized, oh, this is actually doable. But yeah, and that kind of catches us up to the most recent update. But yeah, that's 4 months worth of updates, and I guess that takes us to our final thoughts. Final thoughts on where Sea of Thieves currently is,
and final prayers. So here we are. This is basically after that first taste from the last podcast we did on this. We got a taste of their monthly updates, and it definitely felt like they were getting in the rhythm of them. They just introduced the Pirate Emporium. Now we have the Pirate Emporium. Every month we see the new content. We got the rare heritage cosmetics. We've got we've seen what a new episodic Tall Tale looks like. We've seen major feature expansions like the tutorial mode, the main voyage, and the new fire mechanics. And we've seen smaller mechanics get added, like the banjos and the Reaper's bounty, the Reaper's hideout itself, all this stuff. And so I think that I see a lot of bitterness online. I see the Sea of Thieves community can be really entitled, and I basically see people who are angry that the aggregate of content we get is too drip-fed in this format, that like they prefer the old format where you'd go 3 months with nothing and then get a massive update, and because those felt like they were such a lightning rod moment for the game with cool stuff happening. And I can see the appeal in both ways, but if I step back and I think about the fact that they really aren't trying to make Sea of Thieves a structured, objective-based game, they're giving you these suggested objectives, but they're ultimately still treating it like a sandbox. And the goal is month to month to add more variety and tools to the sandbox. If that's the goal, then the monthly updates are working perfectly. They give you a little bit of structure, they give you some objectives, but they're adding in the new features and things that are ultimately just there to enhance the base experience that is already solid. There's already so much to do. And and so I think that people who are like, oh, this new event is stupid, it's just a reskin of like old stuff, it's just going around and digging up chests and delivering chests, or it's just going island to island and fighting skeletons, I think those people have missed the point that is what Sea of Thieves is about. That's literally it. And so if you can't have fun doing the same stuff over and over again, you probably shouldn't play Sea of Thieves, because what you're missing out is you're not appreciating the ways in which they're cleverly reusing content in ways that feel refreshing and unique. And that's really all Sea of Thieves needs. Once it's got a robust baseline, which it has, and it's got a robust sandbox, which it has, all you really need is a twist on the formula every month to give you a taste. And I think that a lot of players are mad that that's what the game is now. And I don't know what to tell you.
Honestly, since they've started this routine, I've been so much more engaged with the game in general. Like, I've never stopped playing the game, and I've never, like, fallen out of love with the game, but I find myself thirsty to play the game more. It's like, hashtag Thirsty Thursday, I'm thinking about Sea of Thieves. Whereas before, I was, like, waiting for those big events. I was, like, counting down. And now I'm just like, I can't wait till my next session. I can't wait till the weekend when I can play with my crew. And I realize, like, it's made just the day-to-day of the game much more exhilarating for me than waiting for the next big event. Like, oh my god, Curse Sales is next week, or, oh, we have a whole new region coming in, Forsaken Shores. Devil Shroud? What? But, yeah, now it's just, I'm getting that in drips and drabs, as you said, and I think I'm enjoying it more.
Yeah, so I think that there's a percentage, probably a large percentage of the player base that do not play it weekly the way we do. And they maybe play it a lot for a couple weeks and then fall out of it for a couple months. That's probably how most players play most games that are ongoing. And so for those players, coming in with a big update is like their whole thing. Is like, I tune out of the game for a while because I want to play other games, but then I hear there's a big update and that brings me back in and I want to play that. And so players come in and they're like, well, what's going on? It seems pretty small and not exciting. And I think that if you're Sea of Thieves, if you're Rare, you don't want to create this massive drought and then explosion of player activity. You don't want that lull between months, right? You don't want 3 months of the game population dropping and then it resurging with a big update, because the problem with doing it that way is that every time you dip and then grow, your peak gets a little smaller because you shed some players that don't come back. And what's better is having a constant stream of activity, because ultimately the goal of the game now, from a business perspective, is to support the Emporium shop, to create a stream of revenue, and to create a healthy player base, because the healthier the player base, then the healthier the subset of that base is that uses the Emporium and injects money into the economy of their business. It's a business, Hyle. Did you know it's a business?
Rare is a charity. They do this for my pleasure and my pleasure alone.
Well, I don't have a funny joke, Hyle. We've been going at this for 3 hours, so I'm ran out of my funny jokes. Hashtag baby nut. But ultimately, I think that this format is good. There is going to be months that feel less satisfying than other months. And the more that you can take yourself away from the activity and be like, well, if the activity's good, I'll do it. And if the activity's bad, I can find a million other ways to entertain myself in Sea of Thieves because the game is so robust. The more you can do that, the better, because honestly, not all of their monthly events have been fun, in my opinion. And I also think that sometimes the kernel of a fun idea has been ruined by a poorly balanced, like one little commendation that they just didn't think through. And I think you can agree with me on that occasionally that's the case.
Mermaid gems? What?
Mermaid gems in the black powder stashes, or
the
ritual skulls in the dark relics.
Ritual skulls.
The fact that nobody was around doing rag and bone crates, so there was nobody to steal from.
Fucking rag and bone crates, man. Oh man, that's probably. I enjoyed that event at first, and then I think the more I reflect on it, the more I realize that was probably the lowest point. But yeah, I like. There's always ways to have fun with the game, even if you're not totally captivated by the heart and soul of that monthly update. And I am much more engaged with the game than I was 6 months ago, or the time right before, like between Shrouded Spoils and the anniversary update. Like this point is like I'm most invested in Sea of Thieves in February 2020 than I ever have been. Even, back in the days of the technical alpha, where it's like, we can play the game this weekend, everyone. Like cancel all your plans. Like,
the thing is, they're also, the players are complaining about the drip feed of content, but the content we're getting is what players are asking for. It's not being dumped in a big dump of content. It's, it's being kind of anticlimactically drizzled out. And so it's not exciting, but it's exactly what you wanted. Players have been begging for a banjo as the instrument, not the bear, forever. And like basically since the Hungering Deep, they've been like, why has it been 6 months and you didn't add another instrument? Why has it been 12 months and you didn't add another instrument? Well, they just added the banjo with the For the Damned update, one of the biggest requests of features. They did the newest update that came out a couple days ago, the Pirate Appearance Potion, allows players to re-roll the physical appearance of their pirate. All these things, like, it's so much content they add month to month that it goes, I think, underrated, under the radar, because it's not a big extravaganza of content every 3 months.
Right. It's like, that's what I was saying about Shrouded Spoils. The more I reflected on Shrouded Spoils and what it brought to the game, I was like, whoa, the quality of life in the game is much more improved now than it was. Like, Shrouded Spoils didn't grab me. It wasn't the Steve Miller song Abracadabra, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh wow, like this is actually the update to the game that I'm the happiest with. And now everything is sort of Shrouded Spoils.
Right, just miniature Shrouded Spoils every month.
Right. Yeah. Like, as you said, anticlimactic drizzles.
And I think I think we're a little spoiled. I think the fandom, the fan base around Sea of Thieves is a little spoiled because of, honestly, just how much they've done to add content. And every month it's the same complaints. It's like, oh, you didn't add anything exclusive to the 1% of players that are Pirate Legends. I'm so mad at you for that. Or the other complaint is, oh, the new Duke Voyages are just a kind of remix of things that already exist. Well, what, you expect every month they're going to create an entire new format of Voyages that are, like, the fact that, like, I think the Fort of the Damned is the one that got done the dirtiest. Players were so mad that it was just a fort with a gimmick of the Flames of Fate on the Shadow Skeletons, and they said, mechanically, nothing about this is brand new. And they might be right, but you can take mechanics and combine them in new ways to create a completely brand new experience, and the Fort of the Damned was that, for sure. And that's what they do every single month. In my opinion, we're getting things remixed or refreshed, maybe that are not always mechanically new, but they are, in execution, a brand new feeling. Like, it's like we've never done it in this way before. It's giving us something very interesting. And the point is, that's all you really need to keep the game going now that the baseline sandbox is so robust. You just need a little taste of something new every month.
Right. In many ways, it's like taking the exact plot and story beats of Ghostbusters and making it Ghostbusters 2. And that's a Ghostbusters reference.
Ghostbusters, what?
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.